Well, welcome back to all of you who were with us for our earlier programming, but we've got another event ahead of us. It's the PlayStation Tournament Squad Series Nighthaven here in Rainbow Six Siege for North America. My name is Reese Hambrick. I'm joined here by John Seach as we are getting ready for the end of our day.
Yeah, and quickly, in case you need a little reminder as to how the formatting of all this works, we'll quickly take a look at that. Once again, you got the same single elimination bracket that we've almost always had. Top four is what we'll be going over with today, but it has been a much longer bracket during the rest of the day. It's all going to be semifinals in that best of one format. And then once we proceed to the finals, that'll be done in a best of three. Still the same mode of bomb that you tend to see in ranked and most other competitive leagues, except we have rank settings, funny enough too, so much faster pace in terms of the games being over and out with, and in terms of how fast these rounds could potentially go by as well, Reese.
Yeah, the game's actually almost exactly half as long as you would get in a normal competitive match. That being the first team in regular time to get 4-round victories walks away as the victor if neither team reaches 4 points total and they tie. Then we would go into a best of 3 rounds single overtime there. Let's move now to the prize though. Figure out what these teams, the potential victors today, are going to be walking away with. First place, $600 total. Big cash in your pocket there, John.
You also get some extra weapon seasonal skins too, one per person. You go down into $350 for second place, then proceeding on to third and fourth, they share the same money of 250 USD. Seems like we've got the bracket ready to go and have a look to see who are our top 4 contenders tonight. You've got Prime versus Tryhards. That'll be the first game we'll be discussing today for the NA division. And then you've got Bing Bong, the reigning champions, a team that I have gotten the pleasure of casting in the past, and a team that you know quite well as well, Reese, and they're going up against Controller Gang for their first best of one today.
Yeah, we'll get into Bing Bong and Controller Gang a little while later. However, before we go to that one, we would like to tell you about your shot to get in here for our events. And to do that, you're going to want to visit compete.playstation.com. That's the dashboard for not only Rainbow Six Siege tournaments here by PlayStation, but also all of the other games that we cover. We got options here for you folks, so make sure you go ahead and visit that link, check out what we've got on offer. But with that being said, we're going to start to get you acclimatized to some of the rosters. Up first, it's Team Prime.
Yeah, we'll take a look at their main roster, see who they've got playing today. You've got partner Beliso or Bellico, probably the latter, I would say. Mazooks, that's a really big tongue twister. I think you and I were trying to figure that out later in the broadcast, Reese, but surely we'll figure it out eventually. Maybe just call him Prime for short if need be. Furzy for their third. Highfuck as well, who we've had play in previous tournaments as well. And then Gerald as their fifth and final.
And that Prime roster is a team that we are a little bit familiar with. I wasn't here for the last broadcast. That was the NA National Cups final, but you were. And this roster, all 4 except for that top player, Panzer Bellico, were present, and they finished as the runners up to one of our other top contending teams here in Bing Bong. So certainly one we're starting to get a little bit more familiar with, but we'll transition now and get on to the topic of their opponents today, that being Tryhards Football Club, Fast Killer 94, Dark King, Giovange, 038, as we're taking to call that player, and V. Luis.
Yeah, we have a special prize as well for Tryhards, in particular for 38 if he ends up winning. I'm sure we can display that later, of course, not now because they haven't earned their true trophy of tonight, but maybe we'll take a sneak peek at that later if they even manage to make it to that best of 3 finals. I'm sure they've got enough in the tank for them, but they are going against a tough team. Like you had mentioned, Reese, Prime have fought tooth and nail and have only lost to that top team of Bing Bong, who I'm sure we'll get the pleasure of talking about even more later on. But I think we'll just stick with these main 2 teams for today and their map choice for this best of one, that being Clubhouse. I'm sure it'll be a good one.
Yeah, and a little bit of history for Tryhards FC. They played in a PlayStation tournament that was a while back. It was the Open Series monthly finals that was covered by some of our other caster colleagues, being Blue and Demo, who brought you guys that event. They finished as the runners-up. They were playing, I believe, as the team Los Macanudos. So we have some interesting names that teams like to get a little creative, but they had finished, again, another big point, as the runners up to Bing Bong, which is this team that we're really hyping up as one that's got a lot of talent here today, John.
Yeah, I'm really interested to see how that can kind of, I guess, develop, especially on a map like Clubhouse. We talked a lot about defaults earlier in the day when we were talking about EU and how NA likes to rely on them a little bit more. And you can definitely see that, especially on what maps they want to bring out. A lot of Villa, a lot of Oregon, which we did see a bit of that earlier as well today. But Clubhouse as well. I think we have seen that in almost every single broadcast since Blue and Demo for these tournaments. So I'm not really too shocked we're seeing it today here either.
It would be a kind of a strange one to go through a day of broadcasting and skip such a staple like Clubhouse,
Right.
which a lot of teams are so familiar with, and especially here for the NA portion of our coverage as well. It's a point I made earlier. These NA teams, they love their Oregon, they love their Clubhouse. It's two territories where it's very structured. It's a siege that everybody knows how to play, and these rosters, these four today, are especially prepared for that map.
You can always go a little more basic as well on those maps too. You probably play them quite a lot in rank, since I know for the longest time before we had, the 5 map selection when you go into a ranked game, it used to normally be like Clubhouse, Oregon, and then, if you were lucky, maybe you get like Chalet or something. So that's pretty much what you get back then. So even if you don't play a lot of comp, you still probably know how to play in Oregon. You know how to play on Clubhouse because they've been around for so long.
Right, yeah, and that's kind of the way that ranks end up playing out, because you don't want to go to a map where you're kind of things are shaky. You want to end up on club. You don't want to be playing Canal or Consulate or, I mean, God help us, Outback. You want to stay somewhere that you're familiar with, right? And that's especially
Right.
what Clubhouse can bring to you on the server. And it is also a map that I'd like to point out does tend to kind of creep into the overtime territory. At this point in the meta, I'm just going to go out and say it. For PS4, the defenders are going to have a pretty substantial advantage. That could change given the character of these teams, though. Clubhouse is a map where I feel like if you're good, you're practiced on it as an attacker, you can maybe take a 3-3 half. You can maybe even get into the 4-2 territory if you really know what you're doing, if you got good discipline, and you got an IGL who's calling the shots.
And especially if you have the right team comp as well, if you actually can fall back on some of those new operators like Azami, for example. She's been in the scene for a handful of months now, well over 3. So people have gotten used to, bringing her out and play, but I haven't really gotten the opportunity to actually see her banned, let alone picked today. So hopefully that can change today as well, since she is really good on a map like Clubhouse. You could play her on pretty much any bomb site that you would want to go to normally, besides maybe like Bar and Stage, but she can still apply well on that map and have a lot of positive impact for your team. Great gun, good secondary utility with those impacts to make good rotations and better openings for your teammates. You've got those Kibas, which are the main point of a zombie, of course, because you make those one ways that favor you. You can stall a lot longer on those roams and make an even more defendable bunker position when you're on that anchor hold as well.
Kind of an interesting point here, John. We mentioned the idea of Azami, who did not get played at all earlier in our European event. You never had Grim either. I don't know
Yeah.
what it is with Grim, but it feels like people just really don't like him. I haven't really played him much. I never got in on the test server, and I haven't really played much lately with that new operator. Do you have any thoughts or, ideas to share about Grim, why we maybe don't see him so much?
It's more or less because what he does bring to the team, other operators can just do better. I'll be the first to admit that. He's got 5 of those like little B traps, I usually call them. And sure, they can gather good info, but usually you just use them for burn because there's 5 of them. And there's other operators that can do the same thing, but less of an important piece of utility that you'd normally use for burn anyways. And then they got a primary gadget they can deploy as well after the burn phase is done against your opponent's utility. And on top of that, really the only time you're not going to want to use his gadgets for burn is when you're either in a post plant and you're playing off a very proactive information to know when to swing and challenge the guy trying to hit that disable, or you're using it to set up a very aggressive execute. You're working off of info and you either get detected as a defender and have to fall back, allowing that site control to go down by the attackers, or you swing into them and they're going to probably pre-fire you. So he is beyond situational. That word would be an understatement for him. And again, what else he brings to the table, other operators can do that are better. So I hope he receives a buff in the future, because he has had some really interesting, ideas brewed up with him, but not a lot well in execution.
Yeah, I feel like it's one of those gadgets that just does something that flat out really is not very helpful in a lot of
Mm.
context. And, on the idea of a buff, while we're still waiting to get into our first matchup, maybe give him flashes, maybe make him kind of the go-to operator when it comes to burn. If you've got an op that can, take out 7 or 8 gadgets, that is really something. Because a lot of times, you're sitting there and you're waiting for, Thermite or somebody else, you're waiting for additional burn to rotate over. If you didn't have to wait on that, 3 other people could focus on, making a push, making a take in a certain area. Then you just take your one player with nades and your Grim, and you just put all that utility forward. That could really shake things up, in my opinion.
And I think as well, maybe a cool idea as well that'd probably be really annoying to play against. So for potential defenders, if this ever becomes true, I would, hate to be the bearer of that news, but maybe having a slowing effect when you're actually caught in that swarm, I think that'd be really interesting because you have a lot of info, like in Inox, for example, where you can fall back pretty safely. You get ping, sure, but there's nothing slowing you down. Line scanner, same thing applies. Dokkaebi call, same thing applies. But if you get stuck in a swarm, for example, that could maybe allow some really good counterplay that could allow your team to gather even more time to set up for a cutoff angle. So when you do get out of that swarm, if you don't get taken on for a gunfight since they already have info on you, that could allow your rotate to be shut down. So that could be something really interesting. But, obviously I don't think Ubisoft is hearing this, nor do I think they really want to make that an actual option because that would be really frustrating to play against. So probably won't happen, but it would be really cool.
Yeah, and we got to make sure we're giving the coverage to all of our different Night Haven squad operators. Of course, Grim actually being one of those. But Clubhouse is ready for us, so we're gonna go ahead and move on into this one between Prime and Tryhard's FC. It will be Prime beginning on the offense here. I feel like maybe coming out of the gate, I'm leaning towards Prime a little bit more, just because they were a pretty solid roster when I tuned in during the NA National Cups just last month when they were known as Glue Glue Glue. Sure, they eventually lost, and it was a bit of a decisive one to the favor of Bing Bong. There were rounds that were close in there, though, John.
Yeah, especially in their consulate match in particular. They were playing in 4v5s and still winning rounds. That was incredibly impressive, and that was also towards the later end of the night. I think that game ended around 3 in the morning, if not 2 in the morning Eastern time. So I could imagine if I was tired in the booth, I'm sure they were tired playing the game, which took a lot more energy out of their part. So good on them to still make it all the way to the finals and put up a proper fight. Let's hope they can keep some of that forward momentum going into not only their first game, but potentially that finals matchup if they make it there. We'll quickly take a look at the bans we're discussing the finals more. Obviously, you had a Montaigne, Maverick, Capcan, and Clash. This is probably one of the most unorthodox ban phases I have seen for operators on Clubhouse. You almost see the exact same thing every time, but I guess not this game.
No, not this game. Really, the Clash is a weird one. The Monty, I can make sense of that, especially, this is kind of an interesting little side note to go off on. Back in the day, I totally can't remember the team that did it. It might have been Elite Angels, which is sort of part of the Bing Bong squad that we'll have later on the roster. In the Go Forward, they would play a Monty, and they would do a Rafters take through Garage for Clubhouse. They would do that a lot. It was so frustrating. Believe me, I was there. I remember it. The Monty would get up in your face, he'd push you out, and back then there were things like the Legion, there was things like Smoke that could stop the Monty, but there was no, telling when the Monty was going to do that, or it was just so frustrating. It was very difficult to deal with, and it's a solid ban here for Tryhard's FC to get rid of. Maybe the idea is, John, they just don't like shield operators.
That could be it. I mean, you can really waste a lot of time as Clash, and you can be pretty impossible to deal with unless you have the right tools for the job. But sometimes you don't want to bring out that kind of utility every single round. You just want to go what you want to bring out in your attacking style or defending style if you're dealing with a Montaigne in particular. Really love the pick by Dark King. We talked about the Izami, and I guess we willed it into existence, Reese. We've got her as an option, and I really can't fault Dark King for bringing her out. This is probably one of her better sites to play her on because you can basically make Rafters a stronghold. All those little, half cuts on the Rafter balcony itself, you can just inflate with those Kivas and make it even more defender favored to sit in that position, especially if you have something like ADSs or magnets deployed there too to prolong your position there.
A little bit of early hard breaching. Fast Killer 94, maybe seeing if he might be able to delay or put a stop to that. I'm not sure if he would have the angle. I believe the scrap metal roof that's just outside of this master bedroom position probably be largely obscuring the Hibana's current location, but it is good for the Jaeger to maybe check in on that if she does attempt the rappel. In that circumstance, I believe she would be vulnerable. We're seeing the first sign of the impact of this Izami operator, making life so difficult for any attacker seeking to gain control of Rafters.
Now, thankfully, there is no Amai, and the Capitao pick is here for Prime. So, if you have him in the right place at the right time, that could maybe force Dark King off of those Kibas. And if someone has their gun up, that could be a potential kill if coordinated correctly. And again, you normally want to push not only from that garage door, but underneath those garage walls as well to make sure you have more than one angle of attack and you have one person dealing with one portion of that clear at a time, someone gun up and the other one gadget up.
Just a bit of droning here. The Azami not feeling particularly too frazzled. Capitao out from the balcony. It's the Habana. Early death on that hard breacher. She did get a little bit of action, and now the Legion looking to pop open the wall. There's a target right in front of him. The sledge turns around, but that's an easy one for the Legion to pick up as he's taken the advantage. Back there for tryhards, but a little bit of a confrontation. Here suddenly is the Capitao. The Jaeger fighting back in the T-Bird for the assist now. A 1v3 for Jarl.
I was shocked there was no one playing top red, but I guess it was read into by tryhards, able to completely retake that portion of the map, leaving Jer, like you had mentioned, all alone on the top of Plat, and he's swiftly mowed down by Fast Killer 94. Tryhards take a pretty good showing so far in round number 1, despite how difficult this site can be to defend nowadays.
It's a good victory. Starts you off with a little bit of comfortability, knowing that you can defend up top. Especially here for Clubhouse, gets you a little bit of gas in the tank and the momentum beginning to build up there. When you're holding CCTV, can't be understated the actual value of holding downstairs, because when you've got the Azami and all the kunais and rafters already, it's getting pretty difficult as an attacker to clear that. But throw in now the complication of someone in lounge. As an attacker, you don't know what to do. In fact, the only thing that you really can do is directly push in and take care of that player, and then just hope that nobody flanks you, because in that case, you kind of have to move pretty quickly to get rid of the Azami inside garage, which can be such an arduous process. With the first defense in the bag, we're down to the basement.
And usually, when you want to deal with that lounge presence, you have someone holding a cutoff angle by main door to make sure no one can help out the guy garage that you're pushing out. If we had maybe seen somebody on that cutoff angle, maybe you would have had 38 not find a second kill in that round. That could have been a 4-on-3 favoring Prime, and they could have gotten control of garage, maybe just a little bit smoother. But I digress. We'll take a look now at Church, like you had mentioned. A completely new coat of paint, not only for Prime, but also tryhards. They've got the Valkyrie, they've got Mozzie, a lot more proactive information. So I'm sure they're going to try to be on that roam game as long as they can be. But also, they've got plenty of C4s as well. So if that verticality becomes too much to handle, they've got a backup plan just to maybe keep it back for a little while longer. And as for Prime, I'm sure they're going to try to get that verticality down as much as they can. Not because they don't have or not because they have a sledge or a buck, but because they have a fuse.
Dark King on spawn peek attempt, looks out and misses a couple of crucial shots against that player just outside the freezer door. Won't be able to really get much going in the early game here. Attacker control of kitchen, it looks like, and the Jaeger will race away rounder and maybe try for that contest. Still, they'll have the Legion up above, seeing if he might evade the drone game here of Team Prime, biding his careful time as he waits. A little bit of support from the Bandit as well, but Prime not really wandering over here to the southern end of the map as they're still set on the Vert game with the fuse in tow as well here, a more unusual operator.
The secondary EMP, I think, to disable a cardiac sensor in case it was actually there, as Prime do not have all too much info as to what operators are actually available for tryhards in this round. You've got Fast Killer still by bar. A drone will detect his position, but no one here to challenge him just yet. And so far, I don't think the Legion has been located. That could be a trade if need be, but you've got Panther already just dive bombing that poor Bandit, and I guess the Legion has gone to fall off instead. It's not a contested trade. It's Prime to win that first gunfight, and just now they begin to open up that kitchen hatch, and I'm sure they're going to begin to start moving their way across the map to make sure that kitchen is not their only option in the site.
38 does rotate off instead of continuing to battle for control of the first floor. There's the response. The trade goes forward, and Panther, player who had earlier secured that starting kill, now down and out of the fight. But a plant is happening, and the Legion, or excuse me, the Mozzie just runs right forward to put a stop to that one. But in the meanwhile, the Ace and the Thatcher are able to combine to come onto the board and send the advantage back in favor of Prime, as Giovanni's just continuing to wait for the situation to pan out. The Jackal for the attempted swing. Now they're well aware this dirt position can easily be isolated. That MPX is shooting peas out through that single door. An attempt at a plant, but Dark King able to come in on the support, and the C4 goes forward for Giovanni as he puts away Pifok, and now Jarl has no real way to get down the site.
Not too much left to accomplish here as well. The case is stuck inside of Arsenal. He's got to get aggressive in this spot. Not too much time left to do that as well. 30 seconds, and all that Tryhards has to do is just hide somewhere and wait for him to basically just give up his soul down that long hallway, asking to get shot. Tryhards take a second one in a row, and fantastic team play, I've got to say as well for the defense. Dark King getting aggressive to help his player in dirt so he could step out and use his C4 to deny the plant. Yeah, that was perfect teamwork there, and that's what saved them the round, truly.
That's a great thing to have going for you, especially here in a tournament like this where you can trust your teammate to come in off the back of a little bit of information and make a decisive play like that happen. The player that was over by the dummies corner was just too, tunnel vision on what was happening inside of dirt. All they needed to do there, drop down, get the plant, have the individual at the dummy corner just watch long 90, and the guy up on the hatch sit there prone and just look for that dirt door player, because as the Valkyrie are not getting through that doorway, if somebody's up on the hatch, just a little bit of a misplay there by Prime, starting them off in an early hole.
So unfortunately, didn't go the way of Prime once again. Tryhards now potentially looking at match point so early in this game, but I think it was you to predict that we'd probably see a fairly defender-favored clubhouse. So I could imagine there's still going to be some fuel in the tank for Prime, especially if they're able to win this round, which with their lineup, it seems like they have the right tool for the job. I'm interested to see how effective Sledge can utilize those grenades. Maybe he'll want to go underneath to play for some vertical. And if that were to go down, you would probably need a lot of coordination to make sure that Sledge just does not die and is basically just an isolated kill for the defense.
Gym defense, sort of the last resort here. Get it done, get it over with for Prime. Should have a bit of a stronger chance as we go tertiary here in round number 3. Giovanni maybe looking for a bit of an early congestion, just a bit of a spam shot, creating that angle, which might be useful later if any player does choose to hole up outside of the gym window. He'll rotate off. He's already got his sort of trap set up there, and Prime instituting the gridlock, bit of an interesting one, maybe in an area where you might need a little bit more soft destruction on this site with a lot of gadgets at play.
You've got Pifok getting that opening kill into Giovanni. The Jaeger is gone, so that trap is going to get sprung with a stick rather than someone's own body. So good safety measure there by Prime to make sure they get rid of the roamer first and foremost before going into this clear, fully committed, but not fully prepared. First minute just about over and done with. Prime still going in for that CCTV over clear. So far, I don't think they're just about ready to get that jacuzzi wall opened up, but with 2 Heartbreachers, I'm sure it couldn't be too difficult. Shot 21.
Getting a little bit desperate here for Prime. They're losing bodies pretty quickly with no response. Looking like Prime may have found the formula. Wow, aggressive from Panther in just the right moment to compound Prime's advantage. The Bandit goes down. He managed to just get one before the end of things here. 38 now sent back into the site. Can't get his shots onto the Thatcher and the Finka on a sudden and aggressive move. The double kill to close down on that one. 3-0 start. Tryhards FC well in the driver's seat of this one.
And Prime, they were able to acknowledge the first problem that they're going to have to face. That's probably the roaming Jaeger of Giovanni, who's across the map trying to be as agile as he can. They deal with that, and they waste no time going in through CCTV and construction because there was really no extension on that part of the map. Even had somebody on the roof in case they needed backup with positions like Logi, for example, as well. That was a very methodical and well-played round by Prime, and I thought for a minute they had 2 Heartbreachers because they were picking Thermite and Ace at one point during the actual prep phase, but I guess they had only needed the Ace going over the strat they had envisioned on that round. But hey, it was more than enough to accomplish that win, so it's not going to be match point just yet for Tryhards.
Yeah, I did just want to correct myself, not the flawless half, just Prime managing to sneak one in there at the very end of things offensively. Getting the first does help to add a little bit of a cushion there. Now going on to their defenses. This first one, I think, is going to tell you a lot. Prime needs to show coordination, and they need to show that they understand kind of some of the intangibles about how you're going to defend this one. Not allow the attackers to get set up on them too quickly. Tryhards are opting to really go and try and invest in taking below. The first sight of that, of course, being the Ashe and the lack of anyone like a Twitch or, you know, even a Thatcher who is available in this contest. Having that being said, Prime are going to need to send somebody down there. They're going to have to try and hold them back from getting that started. I think everybody, John, defends this fight knowing that the main wall is getting open eventually. That's not something you can say is just not going to happen. But as a defender, if you can stop that or slow it down, that's a huge boon for you.
And I think we might have the Bandit attempting to trick that wall, which could be fairly easy. It's only 2 exothermic charges. And the worst you'd have to worry about is either the Ashe or Sledge going underneath to play for grenades. If you've got somebody watching that, just playing by lounge or stock, maybe even secret, you could most definitely deny that. He's got 2 bandits already primed, but still 2 more in his back pocket. So I could imagine he's going to save them for that special moment to see if he can get lucky and break those exothermics. That could completely negate any possibility of getting CCTV control for free, especially if you're going to struggle with getting Raptors.
Prime looking quite familiar with this attacking setup. They've already stopped an angle from being hidden away inside that stock area with some soft destruction happening right through the construction hash, making sure if somebody's down there, the defenders will at least have some idea about it. Bandit not necessarily in the area looking for the trick. The first breaching round goes forward, and there will be no ability to trick that one out. C4 goes, but it looks like the attackers ran to safety before the detonation of that one.
Well, still having 2 more bandit charges could probably put them elsewhere. Maybe that single wall of con, just for good measure. You already have the mute jammers deployed at the top of Raptors. So that garage wall is going to be a little more challenging to get opened up. And there is only 1 thermite charge. So I don't even know what 38 is going to want to use that for in this next minute 20. Got some drones set up. Tryhards maybe looking to poke and prod at this Raptors position. And again, with no magnets, I'm sure the Capitao can create a lot of space in that one position just by himself, but he still has to be careful being gunned down.
I suppose one thing going for the attackers here, aside from that man advantage, is the fact there's not really a defender playing bottom of garage. Azami does feel a little bit of the start of that burn. The Capitao Flame Bolts not really doing enough, though, to flat out and secure control of that top floor area, and they're still just waiting. The attackers not able to really develop any pressure up here on Rafters as the Azami starts to kind of fall back a little closer to the rest of her teammates. Tryhards FC with 40 seconds, no control of Rafters. This one is looking to go sideways.
They're running low on time as well. You've got the Azami taking a fight against Dark King, but he wins that with the para. Still have to hop into the window, though. If there's someone by red, that could be really deadly for Dark King, and he's got to wait in that coordination for his player by flat wall.
Big round needed here from Furzy. There goes Panther, gets it started. Looking to step out. The Sledge wasn't ready for the confrontation, but even still, Tryhards looking like they're about to come out ahead. Heal from the Kona station, and that construction player, all he needs to do is just keep Furzy occupied, because in the meanwhile, the plant has been completed, and the mute is not having a good time here. Results to the shotgun, but the first one goes way off target. The second one's not even close to home. The third one's out of the park, and the fourth one, where did that go to?
Oh my goodness. I wouldn't even say Whiff City, but the nerves getting the best of that poor man. So much pressure towards him during the post plant, and that Nomad being as agile as ever. Still, I'd say a moment for the day altogether. Match point now for Tryhards, as although it took them a while to set up that round, they still found the opening kill. They still found Raptors control. They still got the main wall open, so they had everything required to get that plant down. And simply put it, once they had all those portions of the map in their pocket, there was no way to really deny that plant safely for the defense, despite them having a few nitro cells.
Well, I know I said that one was going to go sideways, but that was not the way I expected it to happen. Wow, that one really got chaotic, but big props to the Capitao, to Dark King, making an entrance, being ready, having the pre-aimed skills to get on target there against the Azami. And to me, defensively, after they lost the Azami, It felt like they were a little scared to play top red when you've got a Kuna knife that's blocking off that rotate. You need to have somebody top red situated to watch that Raptors window, because if you don't, you're letting the attackers in. You're setting up for an easy plant, and even though there was a C4, maybe there wasn't vision, maybe they didn't know that the plant was going down, and defensively they just crumbled. They just could not withstand the pounding there.
Say, on top of having no pressure over by red, you had tryhards also capitalize on that. I think one or two players went up red stairs too, so they could build up even more over by Cash and the rest of CCTV, so it wasn't just your Plat and Raptors player doing all the heavy lifting in the bomb site. So again, really good coordination by tryhards. But now they're going to have to go up against one of the tougher bomb sites you can play on Clubhouse still, that being Church and Arsenal. You have a multitude of nitro cells. The only operator not running that is the Oryx. So you've got 4 pieces of explosive utility that might be just thrown at your body and will kill you outright. Pretty tough stuff to have to deal with, especially if you're not fully aware as to how many C4s are available. So you might miscount, you get a little too exposed on that vertical, and you might pay the price for it.
Yeah, one thing we haven't seen, the usual hesitation for rosters to play IQ, an operator that on PC is almost never there. Here on PS4, the simple fact that she's got the G8A1, it feels like almost justifies bringing her outright, even if, the gadget was not included. Just the simple fact of that gun being such a beast, having a great DPS. The recoil, it's not the best in the world, but it's manageable. And when you've got that type of gun, sometimes you're just hitting recoil headshots all day. You walk in, you aim chest level, it goes up, and your opponent is just popped.
Say something like that to confirm a kill would be nice for tryhards, as they once again have a pretty tough hill to climb upward. I am a little shocked that you don't have Piff actually trying to roam at all on the Oryx, one of the most mobile operators in the game, and they're currently bunkered up in sight, just now using a Reba Dash to go into the opposing objective room to maybe help out in case there's some pressure built up over by Church rather than Arsenal, since he does not have those C4s to be of help. Speaking of which, 2 have already gone out deployed, and none of them have met their mark to even deal damage to the attackers. They're all still on full HP, and they are all still doing just fine to get more vertical down and setting up for that execute.
Bit of a rough one to justify to the boss man there why those first 2 came up with no results. They're still looking to push back against the vert. You can constantly see tracers firing up through that area. It'll be the Oryx first to the confrontation, but now the X-Kairos used, and Panzer Bellico might just sort of walk out here. In fact, it's actually his teammate from the E-Box area that gets rid of those gadgets relatively with no problem. It's going so far to the favor of Prime, I'd have to say, especially leading on the back of that entry kill. Dark King can continue to use his gadget, but it's not really going to help him with somebody at E-Box there.
So you've got that cardiac sensor as well. Good info to know there's only 2 left. Entry by stock, but good rotate by Dark King to catch Furzy off guard. Runs out of ammo and hits the melee. He thought he was ADS trying to lean to get a better angle. It doesn't pay off though. The Habana and player directly underneath her both live just fine, but that's still a disadvantage here for the offense, but not for much longer. Fast Killer finds one of the Panther, but he does get immediately traded, finished off by the pistol. The plant attempted by 38, but no one's watching the hatch above. You're looking at the Habana, Piff, but you find him eventually, and the round still goes to the defense.
It's a bit of a shaky one there, but Prime do get it in the end. They need one more victory, and they will trigger overtime, the first of which that we would get today. However, in saying that, we have also had a pretty clear record on what happens in a 3-2 scoreline. Has it been every match has ended 4-2 so far?
At most 4-2, yes. For EU, it was only 4-2s and 4-0s. So this could turn into that same pattern, I could imagine, especially since it was, okay, it was bar and stage for a good, 30 seconds on that, and then they changed it to gym and bedroom. That was a little concerning, but they went to the more default bomb site.
Alrighty. We saw what happened last time here on Gym. Did get a little scrappy. Eventually, they had figured out the way that they needed to kind of get in there. It was just sort of a big, aggressive push through construction that ultimately was what was needed enough to put that one over the line. Prime have brought a Mira, they brought a Frost, and the Castle too, all typical operators you would expect here. The only one maybe that is lacking is any kind of wall denial. Not having, even just a mute, something kind of standard to stop Jacuzzi from being opened, as Prime are going to elect to skip that. I hope they're prepared for the consequences.
That could definitely bite them in the rear. I'm wondering where Dark King wants to enter from with that Ying, though. I would assume with no hard breach up. They just changed last second. So they might want to go in for a Jacuzzi rush, perhaps, and maybe get some control over by construction, too, since they have both the Thermite and Ace, a composition I thought Prime ran a few rounds ago. That isn't a horrible idea at all. But again, the coordination, it has to be there. And I would assume a kill of some sort would need to be collected as well for tryhards. And maybe they want to go up main stairs too. That's not an uncommon spot for the Ying to go to, again, help assist that person who's trying to enter in from Jacuzzi, since there are just so many angles you have to be concerned about from that exterior position. So with the Candelas, that can make a lot of space for you to actually get in the building and do your job.
One of the most valuable operators that you can really bring on an offense, but especially here on the console as well, when maybe you need a few extra shots, a few extra seconds to be able to get on target here. I think we've seen a couple moments of that so far today. Exothermic will go on the wall as they're preparing to set up for this northwestern threat pressure. Still kind of worrying about the drone. It's been rather elusive so far. Wall opened up, and Tryhards FC looking for maybe some Logi pressure as well. The Wamai tried the late dirt run out. There is a bit of an angle that you can connect onto the Jacuzzi balcony, but it looked like he was the one who took all the beating from said angle.
Well, at least he's still alive. The man advantage does go the way of Prime. Fast Killer now gone. Panther good for 2. Now a headshot onto Louis as well. This guy cannot be stopped with the UMP. He's just asking to take fights. I would assume, not by Jacuzzi, but somewhere close to that direction. He's just not missing his shots currently. And still, with the Ace nowhere near Jacuzzi, they can't get that mirror window opened up. Someone just swings the breach. It's Panther again, getting away with robbery at this point. He finds a quad. It's almost an ace, but Dark King just barely survives. What a round by the Castleries.
The Ying finally managed to shut down that spree that had been going on, and the Mira was well ready for it. Prime, for the first time today, will trigger overtime, pushing us, of course, to that crucial 7th round, as they are desperately fighting back into this one and have got a semblance of structure and a real urgency here in this clubhouse bout.
I mean, I really cannot fathom how well Panther did on that round, but you got to give credit where credit is due. That man was just refusing to lose, and he wants us to go the full distance. 3 rounds maximum you can see in overtime, so it would be 5 points to win for either side, and then you might be able to see 4 on the other if we can get there. And for tryhards, now back on the defense, that is definitely a big sigh of relief. This was most certainly their better half for not only themselves, but also their opponents. So just off of that one coin flip, for their side being on overtime defense, that could just honestly net them the win altogether, so long as they keep up that good momentum they had in the first half.
Of course, back to CCTV. This one was a little shaky last time we went here, but we're focusing on a new round. Prime are bringing all the typical fixtures that you would expect here. However, the Thermite does swap off. You don't really need 3 hard breachers for this site. It's a nice luxury to have if you want to try, kind of a split take where you've got some angles open in garage, but the main area that you're going to push is, in fact, opening the main breach and then maybe the late rotate into construction. I don't see a lot of teams do that. It did start to get a little bit more popular in Pro League, but I feel like teams have settled back to this idea of kind of the garage take, not trying to do anything too crafty involving the construction area. For tryhards, nothing really going on here in terms of what they brought to the defense. The swap to the fuse, though, John, does that tell you anything about what Prime are planning here?
Yeah, first he's going to impact grenade the plat wall, and Jariel is going to use the fuse charge to deny the bandit trick. That's exactly what's going to happen. Look. They're going to set it up right now. Just stick on Osa, and you're going to see some really cool plays brewing up. He's going to go upside down rappel as well to get that confirmed. Talon shield as well for once that wall gets opened up. I'm really wondering to see what hard breacher they want to employ, though, to get this opened up. I would assume the Selma charges. That would make the biggest opening. There goes the impact EMP, a bandit trick to go, but if it's on the right wall, that fuse charge could work, a secondary EMP, and Louis is tucking his tail and running away as he does not want to get blown up by that shrapnel.
No sense in trying to get in the way of that freight train. Again, we'll see the cluster charges continue to add on to the punishment here and make sure any utility inside of that CCTV area is completely void. Luis better be careful. He is kind of playing with fire as he inches closer to the fragmentation, but he wants to make sure he can monitor this window. If somebody were to jump in, they might just be able to deal a deathly blow against Dark King here, but you can see the value of having some extra investment in the hard breach as the Habana has snuck her way down into the bottom of garage.
Never in my life have I seen all 5 Kivas put on rafters. This is just a sight to behold. And I really would love to see how Prime want to try to deal with those Kiva barriers properly, as besides the Capital bolts, they really don't have anything stopping this guy. And Dark King, he's just made a brick wall for himself on the top of garage. So even with those Capital bolts, he could still be just fine if he backs off a little bit. But speaking of backing off, Prime refuses to give up that main spot. He works the opening kill, and now he sets his eyes over in the rafters to help that Capital.
Fantastic play calling here. Dark King was flashed, but it didn't last long enough. He's able to pop up in the meanwhile and deal with the Osa, who had tried to get up those stairs. Has not been the best game here for Furzy, as he's still trying to recover from quite a poor scoreline. But overall, Prime, they had an advantage, and now it starts to fall back a little bit. But the Habana stepping up in a crucial moment. She's the one to get rid of that pressure from inside of the rafters and set the stage for the execute.
Having those charges as well with the fuse, able to make sure no one's playing inside of CCTV for the most part, giving more room for Prime to set up. Good drone, that could maybe help the red player work that kill, but no, he just barely misses. 38, now making a rotate hole, a better angle to maybe find someone in CCTV, but do they know that the diffuser's going down? Yes, they do. Louis is able to stop that with his well-timed nitro cell, but there's not much time left. The offense, they've got to get aggressive. They're working for picks, but Louis good for another one. A 2 versus 1. The Bandit whips out the pistol, but has to worry about red and CCTV, and it's too much to handle. The tag team works wonders for the offense, and they take it. Match point now, I believe, favoring Prime.
Wow, the Bandit just had angles on every side of him. He couldn't choose one, and he ran out of ammunition. That one was just impossible if there ever was a circumstance there. But Prime, from 1 to 3 to 4 to 3, not allowing tryhards back into this game with a constant barrage of quick attacks, of smart defensive posturing, and making sure that when they get down in a hole, they've got the ability to dig themselves out of it, especially for Panzer Bellico, who has just been a hero so far in this second half, and as well getting into overtime as well.
And as well, I'd suppose the word would be creativity by Prime as well, especially in that last round. I saw they were bringing no Thatcher, really no vertical pressure either, and I was like, huh, what are they going to do with the fuse? And then it hit me. Osa, they've got secondary EMPs. The fuse can go through hard walls and hard hatches, and I was like, I know what they're going to do. They're going to make sure their opponents can't bandit trick. And I mean, it worked like a charm. They got the flat wall opened up, no strings attached. They were able to then rotate on the first floor, get garage control, kill the guy playing by lounge, which was a major problem for them last time. So I love that they adapted to that counter as well. And then they have a fairly straightforward execute, just completely clearing out both CCTV and cash room once again. Prime now taking the advantage off of that, or I suppose reaping the rewards of that successful round win. They get to go back down in the basement where tryhards had a lot of obstacles to go against that just set them up for failure from the get-go, despite Prime just refusing to roam on this site.
Yeah, it has been a bit of a strange one so far. I'd say one of the more, substantial hurdles you'd like to get rid of here is making sure you don't get flanked. Prime have tried to push the idea of a late rotate back up above, and tryhards last time around, there was just somebody that was in kitchen when they were trying to plant, and the Habana just dropped down. It was like she didn't really know what to do there. You got to get down, your teammate's in a really rough spot, and ultimately there, I think maybe trying to maintain your positioning, and also understanding in that moment, maybe you just have to run in and go deep instead of trying to plant when you know there's a defender who's unaccounted for.
Prime once again looking like they're just going to continue that anchor-based composition. Going to wait on tryhards to spend up their own time checking dead angles that no one's playing in, and then they'll begin to set up over in the kitchen to get those hatches opened up and once again deploy that verticality, which we've seen heavily employed by tryhards in the past. They've brought both the Buck and Sledge combination for this exact same bomb site, but that vertical still didn't net a lot of kills for tryhards in those positions. The C4 didn't find all too much either last time this site was in play for Prime, but now it actually gets the opener onto Fast Killer, someone who's been rather quiet towards these latter rounds.
Trick in progress. Tryhards lacking some of the tools in being able to get rid of that, but even still, despite that, gonna maybe try to send a buck in through dirt as well and just get this Cade out of this position. This is probably the round where you wanted the fuse to be in play here. The Cade tricking has been so ferocious. Grenades continue to try to pepper this area, and the Hibana is just sort of waiting for something to happen. At some point, you're just gonna have to say, let's try something else, because this Cade is really fierce.
I mean, they've got a minute to employ that as well. Even if they wanted to go down in through kitchen, I mean, the only other option they have is dirt, because that mirror window, especially since Dark King doesn't have many Hibana pellets left, it's going to be near impossible to deal with properly. So your best option, yeah, go down blue, head through dirt as well, and just see what happens from that point. Maybe even drop Moto if you have enough utility to force back that player behind the triple wall inside of Church. 50 seconds to go. Some of that rotation has gone down by tryhards, but for the most part, they are still committing to that kitchen hatch, and I don't think it's even been opened up still. They are still trying to get that one deployed, and finally it works out, but it's cost them so much time.
And at this point, maybe you're starting to think, was that really even worth it to get that hatch and not try to call a rotation somewhere else? Now you've lost another. The bodies continue to drop as, of course, Prime are going to try to contest this, looking for a bit of late pressure. There is one lurking just inside of the dirt tunnel, as that's the buck. He's looking to press the advantage, and Pifok is trying to hold this one back. But here's the Hibana in a crucial moment. Get that planter in and get him started. Looking for the blue rotate. There's one trying to come in from up above, and that's going to force the rotate back. But Giovanni has got the coverage. Still one up on the hatch, and we're into red time, but no defender nearby to stop the plant from happening. However, Mazza has got a bit of a response to that one as he tries to race his way in. The final attacker pulled up inside of blue. The pistol comes for Dark King. He's gone. There goes Louise. Prime 2 versus X. Mizuki and Charl will end this one here on Clubhouse.
And 4 rounds in a row as well. They were a singular round away from losing the game and losing the chance at making it to finals, but in a dire moment, they get their heads together and they bring it back all the way to get Clubhouse as a victory. I gotta say, well done, and that's the kind of, I suppose, coordination and resilience you need in a team to be that top contender here for even tournaments like this. So makes sense that we have seen them in the finals beforehand, and that there's still gonna be tough competition, potentially going up against Bing Bong once again.
Especially there as well for, you know, a storyline of having one player that goes huge and the rest of the squad, you know, kind of being on the back burner. You love to see a game that ends like that. The star player kind of goes down a little early. The supports, they get in, they finish it, they get to the red zone, and they close out the touchdown. Ultimately, they're a nail-biter, a close one, our first overtime of the day, and Prime are the ones who outlast 5-3.
And I'm sure we could probably see plenty more of those overtime situations reached today. I mean, for the grand final I did a month ago for the whole National Cup, that had gone to several different overtimes on either team's map pick. We had a lot of close games. So again, especially since there's a good chance it could be the same 2 teams repeating history, I could imagine all these games are going to be close. I am most certainly looking forward to the next match, especially if we have these kind of stat lines as well. You got people like Pifok as well, and you've got their top contender doing wonders as well. The almost back-to-back double digits, that is a huge stat line that we haven't even gotten the chance of seeing today.
And of course, that kind of sets up Prime with a little bit of confidence, knowing that when they're down and out, they can make a bit of a comeback run. They're still the underdogs here, I would say, by a wide margin against the expected favorites of Bing Bong. But until we get to that best of 3, Bing Bong, they got to make their own way through a semifinals best of 1. They've got Controller Gang, that opponent, left in the wings.
And in case you might want to end up being the next, I suppose, Bing Bong, the next Prime who can make that Cinderella storyline, you should probably go check out compete.playstation.com to get your hankering hankering of that console action here and get it, I suppose, officially involved with the whole PlayStation scene. Again, it's been a bit of a dry spur, so competition has been sparse, I suppose. So trying to get in as much as you can and win as much money as you can too, it really does go a long way, and it helps out the community loads.
With that being said, we have Controller Gang versus Bing Bong ahead just after this break.
Welcome back, everyone, to the PlayStation tournaments here, the Squad Series Nighthaven with the R6 North American Division. My name is Fel, joined here by Sticula once again. It's been the same show since the beginning with the both of us here, and now we've got another exciting game here for NA. I've been looking forward to this since I know the capacity that we can have at least for one of these two teams, and the other one, like you had mentioned, definitely marking themselves as the underdog tonight. You've got Bing Bong versus Controller Gang. Sticula, how you feeling about this matchup?
This is a big one for me because I know Bing Bong very well. This is a roster that I have seen go through the ages of competitive play, and they have a roster that's hard to really find a fault in. You start off at the top, legit M9, you're going to want to know that player as Cheese Pie 37. He is a beast. Even for an older guy, he's a bit of a beast. Then you got Devious Ollie, Slump, two of those players who are really at the top of the ranked queue, who are constantly fighting it out there. You've got Bowie as well, who was on Toxicos, which is one of the Go 4 teams, for the ages, one of the rosters that won, more than 20 times at least back in the Go 4 era. And you've got Logitech Vibe, or just Vibe as well, who's another one of those, demon champion level players. Of course, though, on the other side, we have Controller Gang, who are a roster that I really don't know anything about. This looks like your Plat 2 squad that's come right out of ranked into the Squad Series Nighthaven.
Yeah, you've got Valencia, Nava, Born, you've got Kigura, and Coop. I believe it's Kupiko as well, or Kupyak as well. Yeah, I don't remember these guys whatsoever from the last series I've done here for PlayStation, so hoping that they can impress today, but they are going against a well-seasoned team that have truly stood, I guess the sands of time, really. They have seen pretty much every kind of integration of Siege. They've been in almost every other tournament, so they're looking just to add another trophy to their I guess, the post-trophy rack, I suppose, at this point, their shelf of trophies.
I mean, yeah, it's almost kind of like a trophy warehouse when you get to some of these players who win every event that happens. And even only within the context of our PlayStation tournaments ecosystem back in the NA National Cups, which you covered just on September 15th. Bing Bong won that handedly. In the Open Series monthly finals, which was the other NA event for PlayStation tournaments that I could find on YouTube, they won that as well. And you've got 4/5 of the same roster that won last month's event, that NA National Cups that I mentioned. No real changes. The same deadly players are here tonight.
And would you believe it? It's Clubhouse again. I'm so surprised. I mean, it is a favorite of Bing Bong and a favorite of many people in NA, so I can't really fault them for wanting to go to a map they like in a best of one. Shocking, I know, tailoring a map ban to favor you in any which way makes a whole lot of hoopla, I guess. But we've got the Ace and Montaigne ban. Not really too shocked about this. We saw the Montaigne last matchup and explained the emphasis as to why he tends to be banned. Ace is pretty good as well for range breach, so now you're probably forcing, like a Maverick most of the time, and maybe the Habana as well if you want actual range breach. Malusi banned as well, finally added off with the Alibi. Definitely seems like we have a lot more comfort bans in terms of default, but all these bans are still good. I don't have a problem with any of them, really.
Yeah, and in the context of Clubhouse as well, the only one that seems like even a little bit off the cuff is, of course, the Alibi. But, in certain circumstances, the one that I would go to immediately would be like a gym defense. Having, the Prismas, each of them at one of the windows in master bedroom or gym, makes it so hard to fight against any players that are in either one of those areas, because you cannot reverse repel high enough to get rid of those gadgets. You'd have to, throw grenades in, or God forbid, jump in the window and just shoot the gadget. So you can't really play kind of a more passive style outside the window, because if you see a target, you start shooting at it. Now all of a sudden you're being red pinged by that gadget from the Alibi.
And as well, with general utility like that, Banshee, and also the Prisma as well, it can be a little annoying to deal with at times too. Just generally pester for most people, especially if you, like you mentioned, if you can end up forgetting about that utility stack up in the late round, you're short on time. Got a bit of a, I don't even know what you would call that. So we're just going to pretend like we saw nothing, and we'll go back onward to the round itself. Only issue I really have with the Malusi and Alibi ban is what it leaves open. You've got powerhouse ops, like again, the Azami. You can bring out Valkyrie on other rounds too if you want to be a little more focused on that information and less on stall. And with Saw potential too being talked about, you've got Wamai and Jaeger available too. So really, it's a can of worms for what you can bring here on either defensive half. The same can be applied for Bing Bong. They have both the Maverick and Thatcher, and in fact, they're bringing out the Osa as well. Really interesting lineup, I gotta say. That's probably going to be heavily focused on plat wall and garage.
Yeah, this might be one of those rounds where we sort of just stick to the first person and we don't go to the overhead view. A little bit of an attempted spawn peek there from the blue window as Controller Gang are looking to kind of push things a little bit forward and send the onus onto their opponent. A little bit of early play from one down inside bottom garage. That would be the Thunderbird, who is looking to kind of take the fight in the early game for opponents as Bing Bong are working on opening up the garage wall.
Got the bandit trick being attempted. EMP goes out, and the bandit trick does not work out. Osa caught, though, but I think the C4 fell off the roof. It just flew past Devious Alley, just, I guess, staring Death down fiercely, and actually scares away Death. There goes Devious actually on that rappel angle with backup by Legit. They both win their ones. Bowie as well shuts down Cukebach. And now that leads to 5 versus 2 here for the offense. Making a 5-on-1. Logitech gets the kill as well. And it's flawlessly done by Bing Bong. Just off the rip of plat wall, they find kills and get into sight.
Can't say that's not really the start to this one that I was expecting. I mean, that's kind of the way that you're going to get this game. Bing Bong are just, they're a roster that's seen it. You know, what's that jingle? How does that jingle go? We know a thing or two. We know a thing or two because we've seen a thing or two. Like, that is what Bing Bong are. They've just been in this situation so many times. They've got players with great talent, and they're playing against a roster that really kind of pales in comparison to them. For a best of one context as well, that was kind of my biggest thing coming into this event, because I looked at Bing Bong as a team. Their only chance to really lose the tournament is going to be in a best of one where they kind of get shocked. They have an opponent that, you know, plays a weird map, plays a weird operator, does something like that really takes you off guard. If you can't shut down Bing Bong early, you know, they're just going to keep going, and then they're going to take their money and run.
I ended up seeing that today as well. Already starting out like pedal to the metal basically in their vehicle in terms of speed. Quite literally the second they got the plat wall opened up, they were taking gunfights and they were winning them on those rappels. And then the rest of Bing Bong just simply collapsed into sight because they're like, hey, we got a 5-on-3 now, 5-on-2. Let's just continue to just work more picks and maybe get the diffuser down if need be. Now they're going up against the basement floor bomb side of Church, where Controller Gang have a very bunker-based composition, but a couple ops like the Legion could maybe allow a bit of a roam presence. But so far, we haven't really seen all too many roam extensions go down on Church, which has been a little shocking because with it being the basement floor bomb site, you have the rest of the map to just do whatever you want. So you could waste a lot of time if you actually go on that roam.
I do appreciate the introduction of the Warden here as well. It's kind of a nice one to have. He doesn't bring a shield. He'll bring a C4. Warden's, did they take Warden's shield? I thought he had shield and barbed. Was it always shield and C4?
I think a long time ago he had no nitro cell, then they added it, but it's currently nitro cell and then deployable shield.
Interesting. Okay, so that is just a bit of a curious choice there, not having any deployable cover. Just make things a little bit more difficult. Bowie is looking for a sneak place. He's going to walk right down the stairs.
Wow.
And there's your entry pick. That is the type of play that you can look to expect from this one. But a great response from Controller Gang to work that crossfire between the Wamai and the Legion.
Cup able to still hold by Moto, but the blind fire doesn't work out. Legit is able to get that trade. Here comes the walk up through main, and it works. Gigura somehow mows through Legit. It's still on even footing, but again, this all happened. 4 deaths went down in a minute, and Devious is now knocking on the doorstep from Blue. He could maybe find a kill by Dirt, work the pick by Boxes. That could be a major opening for Bing Bong.
Jaeger waiting for an opportunity, does have one just straight ahead. Diana runs in. There's the Jaeger. He was ready for that one. Vibe and thought for a moment about the plant. He gets off. It's a good call. It gets him the kill against Nava, and Slump was there for the cleanup eventually as well here inside of Church. As that's 2 in a row for Bing Bong. They're off to a hot start here on the offensive club.
And I am just the wow factor. It's most certainly there. The second time we have seen Bing Bong just forget not even forget the tangibles, but just forget, I guess, some of the precautions, just being fully confident to go in and just kill people. I mean, they're not really trying to overcomplicate this game. And it's working so far. A second time they get aggressive. One guy goes already down in through blue, got the rest of your squad by main and someone on the kitchen hatch. And again, Controller Gang, they're a little starstruck by that. Bing Bong take a second round in a row off that aggression. And CCTV now in play for Controller Gang once again. Do you think we'll still see that same aggression here on round 3, or do you think Bing Bong will take a little more time on this round?
Hard to say. I think they kind of just will do whatever they want when you've got a team that's as we say known in the PS4 community. When you're as known as Bing Bong is, they kind of just will do whatever they feel like, and there isn't, much onus on them to try to play things any differently. But I feel like they're dialed in so far. They haven't looked to me like they're just, super aggressive, playing kind of crazy. They've had discipline. They wait for the checklist, the steps to be established, but they still have, that key to unlock that urgency when you really need it.
So Bing Bong slightly changing up their lineup, it seems. They're thinking about bringing either the Buck or maybe something a little more aggressive here for legit. Nope. Goes back to the Thermite, the op he ran last time when attacking CCTV room. I guess just waiting on confirmation for maybe the bomb site or how exactly his teammates want to attack on this round. So they can get Garage Wall opened up with the Habana pellets and then have the Thermite deal with that main breach, similar to what he did last time. And wow, the fastest we've seen an opening kill go down so far in this entire day, Reese, has been netted by Bing Bong. I can't really say I'm too surprised because they are now currently 3-0 on entry, this time Logitech joining in on that statistic.
Boy, just not really choosing to, open up and allow any mistakes to happen. There will be a try for the Bandit trick, and I believe it is successful, at least for the first exothermic, not having any pressure kind of over in the CCTV window area. It's a good call by Cheese Pie. After the second attempt at the EMPs, he does not go immediately for the exothermic, instead waits for the flashbang, and that will allow the safe detonation of that wall. Kagura is getting flashed. He can't see a thing. That allows a free entrance in from Slump. Looking like a 3-0 result is about to come hot off the press. One suddenly trying to flank below. 5 just absolutely steamrolls overboard, and they clearly know where this last defender is. They ain't waiting any time getting down here. The Frost is looking into the stock, and Cheese Pie will shut it down. 3 in a row for Bing Bong.
Nava just being put out of their misery, it seems, on that last round. And, well, you've got that 3-0 scoreline, but we're not going to have the game over and done with just yet. You might have saw some extra geometry out of the clubhouse. We'll try to get that resolved in a few moments. But in terms of aggression, again, that seems to be the staple so far in this best of one for Bing Bong. I wouldn't be too surprised if they do that on defense as well. I mean, Clubhouse is a map where if you can get those gunfights going your way in the defense, you keep that map control, there isn't a lot of options you really have as an attacker, as you then have to focus on both the site presence and the roamer still alive. So in all honesty, I really could guarantee that there's going to be maybe 1 or 2 rounds maximum that their opponents take, that being Controller Gang. And we're probably going to see finals probably as quick as we get back into the game, really. It's going to be just still full acceleration here for Bing Bong.
Yeah, hard to really argue with you on that one point. I feel like you kind of just have missed the window. If you're, the opponent here, if you're Controller Gang, you had to come into this game with that idea I mentioned earlier about being really explosive from the start because, let's take a step back to our earlier game that we had. 1-3, you're down pretty far. Still, trying to kind of be a little bit scrappy and fight your way back into this. That's against an opponent who is, I felt like the first 2 teams were on a pretty even keel. They weren't, one is too much better than the other. Things are different in this game. Bing Bong are a roster that's just so experienced, that has got, all the intangibles, that's got crazy mechanics, that is just, these are like all-stars. This is like watching, an NFL team play against, the top roster out of college football. It's just a little bit of a different, combination. And you're going to get that in events like this. Your window might be shut, but we never want to say things as these they're totally concrete, totally solid. We could get back into this after the rehost, and things could be totally different. Maybe that break allows you to kind of calm down a little bit and find the right mindset to close this one down.
Yeah, maybe a pseudo tech timeout, perhaps, if you want to call it that. Got some more time to discuss the new half, what you can do better, what to expect. Now, attacking,
Attacker's objective is
it's
to
definitely going to be
locate
a
a
lot more
bomb.
difficult because now you have to be the one to set that precedent on the offense. You have to be the one to get into that building. And off the bat, I think someone caught Bowie being ever so aggressive, most likely on a spawn peek or a run out. So he's
Attackers
already
located
died,
a
but,
bomb.
at least the game, it seems normal so far, besides Bing Bong not winning the entry.
Well, that is a little bit of a different note, and it is a great one. We're back, of course, into the game, not having to restart totally out of the lobby is always a fun one. And Cheese Pie is on the SHG-12. This is definitely a little bit more of an unusual one. After Bowie going down in the early game, there is a bit of a response dealt to the sledge. Slump looks for the angle, and a quick pull trigger goes away. There's your Lion off the board, and Controller Gang needing desperately to recover from this one as they've seen their advantage now come back against them.
And they don't have a lot of utility to really push back Bing Bong to get that entry in the site. Oh no, the shotgun, the pillow gun, as most call it, with that suppressor, legit is gonna just break apart the poor Habana by main stairs. And now it's Valencia, already located himself by secret stairs. The defense, they're well aware of his position. Slump wants a third this round, but they're not gonna get it. Audio heard above, top secret, but ooh, Logitech still wins that gunfight. The Claymore not even required. And Bing Bong, we predicted it, we expected it, and that's the game for him as a win, 4-0. And we might see that exact same tempo going into the finals.
Yeah, it's hard to argue on that point. Of course, that would eventually be Team Bing Bong matching up against Prime in our best of 3 finals here for this event, and just a decisive result. First semifinals, overtime, the whole shebang, both maps on Clubhouse. We get into the second semifinal. It's club again, but it's one that is much shorter and much easier to find. This finals, it could go very in favor of Bing Bong. It could be over before you even blink.
And I would mention that maybe you could see Clubhouse as that decider, but honestly, I don't know if that's going to happen. It might be a map 2 pick, especially if it's Bing Bong's opponents picking secondly, and that could be a very big trap card played if correctly done by Bing Bong. But we'll take a look at their stats for a couple more seconds, and Logitech stepping up big. But besides that 8-kill player of the Jaeger, I mean, there was really no major disparity, really. I mean, everyone got active on the entry in that game. Someone even died on the entry, too. The conversion rate, just 100%, no matter what happened for the offense, and then transitioning defensively for that one round. So, gotta give credit where credit is due. Even Logitech going flawlessly, I mean, I'm expecting at least someone to have that same kind of stat line, but maybe not Logitech going into next game.
Yeah, and Vibe there just didn't die at all. Survived. Completely decimated anything he ran into. Cheese Pie, 4.0 KD. Devious Ollie, 3.0 KD. I mean, nobody could really get in front of those 3 players. When you got 3 players who barely ever die the whole game, that's what you're going to get. You're going to get a 4-0. You're going to get decisive results. You're going to get success. It felt like almost every gunfight for Bing Bong was just bam, bam, bam. They were taking them. They weren't struggling. They were in control. They felt good. And that wraps up our semifinals. Of course, we have the overall grand finals of this event, and we'll go to the bracket to show you how things played out so far. Bing Bong are looking for a 3-peat to add another piece of trophy hardware to their massive warehouse, as I termed it earlier, and Prime have got a major job to do ahead of them.
I mean, at this point, you might need like a forklift or something to take apart that big trophy case and just kind of mow it around wherever you need to. Maybe get an engine of like a Thorn combustor or something along those lines. It's just, you're going to need full capacity to get that thing because, like you mentioned, they have just won so many different events here at PlayStation. It's just, it really has built up their repertoire over the years. And maybe if you want to be like that Dynasty team, you could probably go over to compete.playstation.com and maybe, sign up your team. You could maybe turn from that pug stack that goes from the Cinderella story all the way to the top dogs to maybe one day face against Bing Bong in the grand finals, perhaps.
Yeah, and even if you're just a casual viewer who enjoys Rainbow Six Siege, but you're talented in another game, we've got lots of options in our PlayStation tournament sort of system here. So go ahead and check it out. Just visit the link. Just go over there and kind of take a look at what we've got. I know we had some fighting games that played out here on the PlayStation stream yesterday. So if you're into that kind of thing, we have options for you available. But as we said, a big story coming up in this next game, the underdogs or the 3-peat. We'll find out after this break. Well, finally, it is the moment we've all been waiting for, the grand finals of the PlayStation Tournament's Squad Series Nighthaven here on Rainbow Six Siege. We've got Bing Bong on one side, we've got Prime on the other, and we've got a good story to tell you. My name is Reese Sandbrook. I'm joined here with John Seach as we get ready for this best of three to cap off tonight.
Yeah, and once again, taking a look at already what we have seen today, I mean, you had the total opposite scoreline of a 5-3 win there for Prime, still 1-0 for each team, but Bing Bong confidently and competently won their matchup as well against Controller Gang. So really, I mean, this could go either way. And not to mention, we've talked about the lineage of both Prime and Bing Bong, although Prime have gone under different names in the past. They have faced against one another not too long ago, so they've got good info on one another. So this could be a really good game.
Yeah, that's an amazing point to mention. We've had this exact matchup just in our previous tournament. So
Yeah.
not only do you have this idea of, Bing Bong going for the three-peat back to back to back, but also, this Prime roster was previously known as Glue Glue Glue. Can they perform the upset tonight? In order to get that to you, we'll of course go to the rosters and find who the players are and kind of get you the story of how this one will play out. We'll start off again with Bing Bong, that being Logitech Vibe or just Vibe, Bowie, Slump, Devious Ollie, and then Legit M9, again, that player being known as Cheese Pie.
And we've got a whole list for that guy's name as well, but Cheese Pie and Legit M9 is what we'll most likely be sticking to throughout most of the night. We'll take a look over at Prime's main five as well. Again, we saw them similarly play on Clubhouse as well. You've got Panther, Maza, Fursy, Ifok, and Jariel as well. At least I didn't mess up their names this time. Took a best of one, but you know what? It happens. You get some creative names here and there, so gotta cut me some slack on that one. But again, they still got the win, so at least they get second place, so a little bit better than put in either third or fourth.
Yeah, it definitely is kind of a close one in terms of... it's hard to justify this one because Bing Bong are just a roster that I know as being... they don't lose. They really don't lose. When I was back in the day when I was playing against Cheese Pie's old team, which was Elite Angels, I mean, he just won, every event. There was you look at the bracket and you're like, oh gosh, dang it, I gotta go up against Elite Angels again. I just lost to them last weekend. What do you do in this situation?
Yeah, I mean, at that point, you got to hope that in your scrim matches, you're specifically banning ops that aren't even on the ban phase at that point. I think you had a little bit of experience with that in the past. Maybe just specifically banning away Cheese Pie's operators could be the go-to here just to make sure he's powered down throughout most of the night. But he wasn't even the top fragger last game. That went to someone completely different. And that player as well, going 8-0. I mean, wow. That's a stat line that we haven't seen. I don't think we've had a single person go flawless in any of these games. Someone has at least died once up until that particular best of one with Bing Bong having that singular player go flawless.
Yeah, you really don't get that too often. It really just goes to show you kind of the skill gradient that we have going in here. But of course, things are a best of three, and that does kind of change the aspect a little bit. Does allow you to kind of, have a little bit more flexibility, and it does change the way that you're going to play in the long term versus the best of one where you're just trying to get in there and go as fast as possible. You do have a little bit of a safety net. You have the knowledge, okay, maybe our opponent's map pick is going to be a little bit of a rough ride, but once we get into territory that is familiar to us, then we're going to really show out.
And we've got at least one of the three maps confirmed, map number one being Chalet. So we had a bit of predictions going off during the quick little break of us seeing where we would go to today. And we had assumed, both of us, that it would be something like, Villa, Consulate, Clubhouse. Both teams got on Clubhouse, so that's a good decider map heading into that best of three potential. You've got Consulate, which forever ago, just about a month, that was the map where Prime, formerly known as Glue Glue Glue, actually beat Bing Bong, even though they were in a 4-on-5. They managed to bring it all the way to overtime, get that dub, I believe 5-3, if not 5-4, and then Villa, which is a very stock standard map in NA competition. So that's what we were assuming, and I don't think we were fully wrong. I even mentioned Oregon at one point, but we got map 1 of Chalet, map 2 of Oregon as well, and then that decider, if we get there, is going to be Border. I do think that these maps favor the side of Bing Bong significantly more, except for Oregon, because like we mentioned in the past, Prime are a very good team on default maps, and that's exactly where they want to be. So I believe that was their map pick. No, it was actually Bing Bongs, but either way, it's an equalizer map. So if you show up well on map 2, there's a good chance you're going to win it, even if your opponent's technically better than you.
And another point we had earlier, this was something that came up just in the morning during our EU competition. We had a very similar veto structure where it was kind of focusing on some aggressive maps to start and finish the best of 3. But right smack dab in the middle, we had Oregon. We had a very structured map. And I'm going to make the same point that I did make earlier. Oregon, with the structure that it's going to bring, is probably the one that decides the series. But, you know, additionally, I feel like there's also an argument that you can make if Prime don't close out their map pick, like, there is very little fuel that you're going to find to be able to shut the series down, because Bing Bong, I'm sure they've got some kooky strats that are going to be cooked up on Oregon that are going to be very difficult to get in front of. So for Chalet here, Prime, go big or go home.
Chalet as well is a map that can cater to you if you're willing to be aggressive, if you want to go for those gamble kills, and that's exactly the playstyle of Bing Bong. So their comp probably going to rely on a lot of aggression, just getting in your opponent's faces, and also creating obstacles for them. So you're most likely going to have an advantage taking those aggressive gunfights. And from what I can gather, you got a couple of operators to facilitate that, more or less the Mira and Frost. Mira more specifically because, again, you've got that one-sided, you know, indestructible mirror that you got to look at, and with there's util directed around it as well, it can be a real hassle to deal with. With the bomb site being kitchen and dining, I would assume one of those mirrors gets deployed in the first floor to help with the execute denial, more specifically on that dining wall. And then you tend to see the other one put above if you're going to extend. And with the lineup by Bing Bong, I would assume they extend at least a little bit up above.
Well, one point I did want to mention once more, just to kind of refresh everybody, if you weren't here for us for any of the earlier matches and you're just tuning in now as kind of a casual viewer, this is a different format than you might usually expect. Same best of 3, same, you know, win 2 maps in a row and you're done, or close it out on the decider. But also the actual maps themselves have changed as well. On a side note, we have all ranked maps in play. We didn't get any of the fun ones like, you know, Stadium Bravo or anything like that today. We've been sticking kind of to the straight and narrow, all the comp maps. But also within these games as well, the round format is different. It's half the length of a normal game, where instead of playing 6 rounds and then swapping to play another 6 rounds, you only play 3 rounds and a half. And the first team to get 4-round victories in regular time will close out the match flat out. However, if neither team can reach 4 rounds in regular time, each team gets to 3, yada, yada, yada. Then we would get an overtime triggered that would last for 3 rounds, that being a best of 2. So you win 2, the game is over and done with.
Yeah, so in layman's terms, it's rank settings. And instead of like comp regulation 12 rounds, so like Reese mentioned, much faster in comparison to what you tend to see in other competitive leagues. And that also definitely favors a team like Bing Bong, who are, again, very gung-ho. They want to get in your face. They want to kill you. And they're going to do so in a very quick amount of time and only need a couple round wins to continue that aggression and get a map win altogether. You've got Prime so far being a little more laid back. They're just starting out this top floor clear. Some good info being provided by that gridlock, droning out over by Mezzanine, now working their way into Piano. And some chip damage has been done as well. And for one of the first few times in forever, we're not seeing a Thunderbird. So this damage on the defense will stick.
Yeah, and it's kind of a bit of a deviation from the way that we would typically expect the composition to come up with, but having the trap operator, in case anybody jumps in a little too carelessly into any windows or any uncertain areas, the Frost might be there to shut it down, and it's the Frost who gets started. Unfortunately, though, she doesn't live for much longer. Traded back out by Panther, who has been one of the big players for our tournament so far today, and it's so far been an equal skirmish. 3 versus 3 after the top has been cleared.
Still having Logitech vibe linger, though, over towards Solar Stairs. The drone will locate him. He'll fall back a bit. Thankfully, no one on that trophy window cut off, so he can just kind of walk back down for free. And currently, Legit, aka Cheese Pie, is just watching over the hatch. If he could maybe work a gunfight, bring back that man advantage, that would heavily cripple Prime, since they don't have a lot of options to really enter the building and also play for trades if they're put in that 2v3.
Kind of a quiet period in the round. Prime just getting set up, looking for some way that they can move forward. That'll be the extra third. But in the meanwhile, C4 comes out from Devious Ollie. Still the Mira just waiting at her window. Logitech M9, that being Cheese Pie, hits the rotation. Just going to try for the flank. This could be devastating if Prime have not got the proper coverage for it. But look, there's a Z-ping. I think they're aware of what the Malusi is trying to do down below. And you can see Furzy was actually on his cam in the meanwhile. Devious Ollie will look to take this a different direction, though, and he shuts down the Sledge, who just got a little careless about the solar stairs.
Yeah, good play, working off the fact you've got to get a 1-for-1 in this position to make sure your team can hold on. Here comes Jariel through the breach, finds one over by the long hallway, and still up above on that hatch. The ace, Fifok, is able to kill that Mira once again, trying to work a pick over by Solar. A close call, Prime still get the win.
And here in our grand finals, of course, that underdog story, Prime getting started like that is big for them, and the structure of that one too, having the right intel to make those calls, being a drone, you know, just down there in the basement, knowing that, okay, this player is going to try for the flank. We're aware of that, and we're even going to kind of change our attack a little bit to accommodate that and be ready for such a play. If you're prepared like that, it helps a long way in making sure you're comfortable and the rounds play out in a way that you can predict and expect.
Overall, consistent trades as well by Prime. They were only, I'd say, isolated for a small portion of time towards that late round. That was mostly Jariel's kind of doing its own thing on the hard breach, and still winning as 1-for-1 wasn't that big of a concern. I love that there was still a lot of backup on that top floor to, again, provide verticality, and when you saw that C4 get thrown out to down, I believe was the fuse, having him get picked back up, still being an important facet of that top floor presence, it made a complete difference there for Prime just to have more bodies in those last couple of rounds, and things considered, it came down to another 1v1 position. So if you had one less player there, that could have been the round win altogether for Bing Bong.
Yeah, it does kind of, you need to get in there with those opportunities. Sometimes they are, you know, few and far between, and sometimes just that tiny change is enough to get you over the line. Bing Bong have got a pretty substantial change. You already mentioned the lack of the Thunderbird last round. She'll be here in this composition up top. Bowie has brought the Echo as well, which is kind of a more interesting change. Bit of extra information, as well as a gun that might seem like a bit of a pea shooter, but it can reach out with that 1.5 times optic.
That suppressor really doesn't feel like it actually suppresses any damage off that gun too, having significantly more DPS than the regular MP5 and potentially the MP5K as well, so it really is a standout gun put in the right hands. Have to wait and see if Bowie's going to have to rely on that, since he usually is the last line of defense, being on that Echo role, and as well the Yokais too to help assist legit, aka Cheese Pie, so he's not the only person trying to stop that plan with any kind of primary utility. You've got Prime maybe setting up for a window repel position, either by double or solar, and it seems like the Zofia is opting for double window, and interestingly enough, removing the Claymore, so maybe could be susceptible to a run out, but it seems to be just a bait.
A little bit of swap up there as he just starts it out, kind of makes the defenders fear him a little bit. We call that phantom pressure. Open up an angle. Make sure, you know, you aren't, as a defender, focused on just one thing. You want to have sort of some of those uncertainties, and it also helps, you know, as an attacker to already have that angle set up when you rotate back for it later. Bit of a confrontation here. Furzy had one just inside of Hut. He'll hop in, and there's the entry pick. Such a positive note for Prime to get started, eliminate one of those main roamers too.
A second opening kill now for Prime. Let's see if those trades will be found once again. Yes, so far that's going to be true. Devious gets rid of Piff. Zofia gone, one of your main cutoff players towards the late round. But Prime don't seem too phased. The Finka just goes right into the shield and wins the gunfight. The LMG just being better, and the backup behind that bathroom shield wasn't enough. Panther gets out, has time to go for the Finka boost, and is now looking much better in comparison to how they were a few moments ago.
So disciplined here for Vibe as he just waits on the angle. A little bit of a sound cue. Sounds like the thermite sending off a few shots. Bowie hoping to maybe stop the plant, or if only just gather a little bit of information with the Echo drone as well. Panther just kind of testing the waters. He gets another one, having an awesome performance, but finally shut down by Vibe, who monitors the long angle. There's another from that same forum, and Furzy does notch it down. Bowie in the 1-on-3. He's on the Yokai, but he gets shot up by the Sledge, who walks up the stairs and puts this one to rest.
And the fact they were able to eliminate that smoke and that piano presence so early, it forced such a callback by Bing Bong as well. They need to start getting closer to office. They need to start working those ones. And with it being a 4 versus 2, I mean, there weren't many guns left that Bing Bong could really rely on in that position. And again, when you've got Bowie, that last line of defense, he's usually not in a spot to find a kill, but to use the yokai. So you're basically in a 1vx position. That seems to be very challenging for most people, especially when they don't have that utility to stop a plant or slow down the execute phase of that round. Again, Prime, fantastic coordination. Really, everyone did their role in that position, and they wasted no time dealing with the main lines of reinforcements for that master defense.
Bit of an awkward point so far. Bing Bong yet to get going. Their strats on defense have not really yielded many rewards, and Cheese Pie, you know, your solid anchor player who's supposed to be sticking in for you there, is the one who is finding himself kind of on the receiving end of a bit of a sort of a tackle play by Prime. Get rid of that smoke player. You know, he's not going to be slowing you down anymore. And not to mention, you know, as well, Panther Bellico, who was huge in the semifinals for his roster, nearly, you know, I wouldn't want to say single-handedly, but had a massive portion of impact in their game against Tryhards FC. Without him there, that might have been a different result in our semis. But now is having a nice game for himself as well, has been finding kills, crucial moments against Bing Bong.
I think it would definitely be a statement if Prime could win this round on top of it too. Bing Bong so far been the only person in NA as well for our stream to actually go flawlessly in just one half, let alone the entire game. So that would be a really good clap back before we really even get the ball rolling in this final series. And Prime already wasting no time trying to get proactive in this round. You've got a Claymore for the hatch drop down for a later flank watch. You've got info being gathered by that ace. They want to set up those long cutoff angles as quickly as they can. And across the map, it seems like the offense are also trying to maybe get that snowmobile wall opened up. But for now, they'll just focus on the first floor a little bit closer towards the gaming portion of that map. And eventually, if they want to rotate downward towards that wall, they can do so.
Feels fairly cautious from Prime so far. Not making any gung-ho maneuvers or running in without drones. Bit of pressure over here by the top of the basement stairs, and the wall opened in towards Boiler. Cheese Pie sends a few shots on towards that direction. He has come off of the smoke roll, instead opting now as the Malusi. This is a very strong position for him to hold, having as well the ability to shut down any grenades from the trophy system of the Jaeger, but also the benefit of the kunai to make that even more of a challenging angle to try to fight in against him. But there's yet another opening kill. Bowie 1 and 3. That's not a scoreline you're going to see him at a lot.
Such a major kill as well. One of your only roamers. If Pithawk can actually get active in this round, utilize those cluster charges, that could make a lot of space and maybe help with that hatch presence too. That could really help enable the post plant. And since the flank is already being guarded by those gridlock tracks and claymores, there isn't much left to worry about here for the offense besides the actual site presence. And there it is, the space just now being made, but Cheese Pie still wins his one.
Crucial moment for him, but Pithawk on the recovery. That's the alibi dealt with. Panther Bellico looking to step in. I don't think this alibi is aware, or even the Malusi. No, Cheese Pie shut down. Here's Vibe to try to make the response. He can't do it. Panther Bellico with the rifle, but the 416 shall respond by Vibe. He won't get another. Primer running away with this matchup. A flawless half 3-0 to start it off.
They are just looking so good on their map pick. And I mean, I guess Bing Bong weren't maybe anticipating Chalet. That might have been the bigger aspect of this selection here by Prime. And honestly, I gotta give credit to them allowing this map to slip through into their favor. Seems to be going well for them so far, but they've got to keep it up going into their second half on the defense. We could easily see Bing Bong take this back, as Prime themselves have been the team to actually benefit off of that reverse sweep. We saw 4 round wins in a row in their previous game for their semifinal matchup, so that could easily be turned against them if Bing Bong are put in the right environment. But Prime, I mean, man, no matter what situation you put them in, they just look unstoppable, especially in that entry department too.
That's a massive portion of this one. And I think the mid-round as well, the fact that Prime are being very careful after they get their advantage not to spoil it. Bing Bong are looking for those opportunities, but they aren't coming to them. You know, losing Bowie having, somebody like Cheese Pie try to make the recovery. That's not really the spot where you should be in as far as the system. You would look to Vibe, who didn't even die in his semifinals match. He didn't die once. He was 8-0. This time around, it's hardly, a moment where we're talking about him at all. For Prime so far, it's been consistency between Panther Bellico, Pifok, and Mazuki. We've just been watching those three players completely patrol the map and shut it all down. And it was a point that I had mentioned earlier when it was the semifinals of Bing Bong versus Controller Gang. The way you beat one of these top champ stacks is come in with authority, play your own game, don't let things get out of control, and dominate in the early and the transitional phase of the mid-round.
Bing Bong with their lineup, I assume they want to employ a similar strat to help, set up those long angles for good counterplay. You've got Slump on the Osa, good for both breaches, and good for pretty much almost every site but Barn Gaming on Chalet. So a good selection by Slump overall. You've got plenty of hard reach as well with legit Cheese Pie to go, again, get those openings for your teammates. Also got some grenade spam and util dump with the Flores and Iana pick. A lot of options here for Bing Bong to force back climb and maybe get a good headway into the bomb site to get that diffuser down, or at the very least just put yourself in a position to take gunfights, since we know how gun-based Bing Bong can be.
The Jaeger is looking to make a very early contestation out from that sort of trench doorway. They've given him some extra cover in here as well. I haven't seen this done before with the kunais, but it is kind of a neat little notion. Make an area that really formerly doesn't have any cover be now a covered position, a fighting position that you can kind of make picks out of. And Panther Bellico will look to do that. However, finally that strat is put to rest, and kind of the drawback of Prime not having anyone like a mute does see its result there.
Yeah, and that could have been used, those Kibas, to keep the cutoff denied, so you could play in connector and still have impact to help out your player by pillar. But wow, look at that. The grenade perfectly cooked, deployed onto Pitbox location by pillar, and now they could maybe just hop into sight so long as no one's playing on the hatch. And I don't think that's the case currently, Stick. We might just see the execute go down.
That might be the right call to make. Just kind of explode onto the objective. Panther Bellico, a crucial missed shot. Cheese Pie with the plant coming down now. There is nothing the defense can do to put a stop to this. No C4 to deny the plant. The long angles being monitored. It's a slaughter for Bing Bong. They have found their way back into this one, and Bowie will close it down. There's a flawless round to start the second half, and potentially the beginning of a big comeback here on Chalet.
Major statement to make. A lot of these rounds have been so down to the wire. We talked about the importance of that trade potential and backing each other up all the way back for that dining room attack, and how that was the saving grace for Prime. That still came down to a 1v1. That round, night and day. You had everyone on Bing Bong, again, firing on all cylinders, just the typical Bing Bong style of play. Once they see an opportunity, they take it, they all commit to it, and there is no second guessing that kind of play into the bomb site. They get around, win off it, but they got to keep that ball rolling. Once again, momentum, such a big thing. And in terms of stall potential, Barn Gaming is a perfect site to do exactly that, especially with the comp that Prime are currently rocking.
Yeah, and it's one of those points where you look at this one, and you're a caster, you want to tell this story of, wow, this team is just running away with the series. But you have to keep in mind this idea of, there's always a method, a way to make a comeback. And there have been some legendary console, I don't want to call them events, but, moments in time, certain tweets, certain comeback ranked matches, especially Jinxie on Xbox has got a tweet where he was just getting absolutely blasted in one of his ranked games, and he just turned it around. He won like 5 rounds in a row or something outrageous, and he was just cackling like a madman. And there are those moments, especially on console, where it's about just the vibes, it's about the kind of the mental that you're in. If you will that comeback into reality, it might just happen.
I like to say, if someone's really in their head mentally and they're on a very important role like entry, I tell them, play the game like you're playing bowling. Just if you're really tense, you try to wheel that ball out to the alleyway, you're going to get a gutter. If you play loose, play relaxed, and let the ball do its thing, you're going to do significantly better. So Hopefully, Prime play this game like it's going to be a nice set of bowling, a lot of matches to go forward in with that, and maybe that'll pay some big rewards here on the defensive side. You've got Bing Bong trying to deal with this top floor presence as fast as they can. Devious once again on that Flores, and the Nook of Slump. Interested to see where he sets up, because with that secondary breach, he could maybe go into bottom garage slash snowmobile and maybe go for a lurk play. That could be very intriguing if that happens.
There it is again. Kind of the story of a shifting game here. The entry kills, 100% round win conversion rate. If you get that opener, you got the round in tow as well there. And losing one of those crucial players. However, there's the response. That's exactly what you need to kind of mediate the situation. Pifhawk maybe chased out of the top blue area, but that attacker not choosing to try to race in against it. And Panther Bellico, he can't get back into the site. He needs a teammate to go ahead and open up this castle barricade, but I think they might at least sort of be aware of this. It seems perhaps that's not the case, though. Nobody from Bing Bong in position to shut that down, but 1:25. Now possibly at least lose control of the top floor. You can start to get the vert going.
I love how Panther remained composed and just waited for his teammate to help him out rather than being gunned down. A good safety precaution there, but in terms of safety, Furzy was not in the line of it. He was in the line of danger there. 4 versus 3 now for Bing Bong. Bowie trying to work a fight over by Fireplace, but so far that bar top is going to be too strong to be able to find anything with a wall bang. Vertical going down as well up above, and it really seems like Bing Bong once again are just knocking on the door frame of sight. Only a couple more seconds left to set up, and if they can maybe find this roam presence too, this could be a very well-timed attack.
To me, it felt like Bowie just wanted to kind of run in there once he had realized the player over behind the bar had rotated out. He eventually kind of tried it, but it didn't work out for him. G-Spy with the response. Very passive from the castle, but holding the angle. It looked like that attacker actually aware of him, but you need to monitor the situation with the time that's remaining. You only have 30 seconds to get in here. However, control of the diffuser. I like this call to rotate and hit it from the east side. There's the rotate down, and G-Spy was looking the wrong direction. It leaves Ollie with 15 seconds. The castle wanders in, and that might be a crucial mistake. However, no real intel on the final location of the Jaeger, who actually has stepped forward. Tuck left through the rotate. Devious Alley doesn't have a clue, and he might nearly backpedal into his opponent, who rotated to the other side. No time left. This one will run out. Round number 5 will go, and that will shut us up here on Chalet.
Massive win from the very get-go here for Prime. Bing Bong now on the back burner. A rare sight to see, but one that is not impossible. What a major way to do it as well. I gotta say for Prime as well, they didn't just, I suppose, tunnel vision on focusing on just the site presence. They were still setting up a lot of mini games in that round, info with the bulletproofs, castle barricades for choke points. They had people still playing and dining and going on flanks to make sure that you've got a lot of angles to deal with on the offense, and you're always going to have to be on your toes rather than being completely flat-footed on the ground. So Prime 100% deserved that win, and they made a really good call to go to Chalet because they were simply the better team on that map.
Yeah, they looked really strong on Chalet. I think the moment where that last round kind of goes wrong is Bowie was so hesitant to make that aggressive move into the bar area. If he just had a teammate there, they could have easily walked right into sight, traded out the player that was in stock, and just planted, while, you know, the rest of the squad was over in the dining area.
Did seem like for a moment you did have Vibe not too far away from Bowie, but then the call was made for him to go back up above. So then again, the Twitch is isolated, and that one position going into bar doorway, if you don't have a lot of pressure by gaming, for example, or with the vertical, that's a death sentence to walk into. And that's pretty much what happened there by Bowie. He eventually got traded at some point. You lose your one lurk player that was going to go big on that round. The rest of your teammates are kind of creeping away on the top floor, still moving lower. And Prime were still set up to counter that. They were still in Mudroom. They still had a guy playing in stock, which is a very tough area to deal with when you have someone backing up that stock player. So again, well disciplined there for Prime to make sure that this game does not get out of hand and they can already go to Oregon.
I think crucial as well there for Pifhawk to have stepped up, and he got the immediate refrag after they suffered that early death. Because we had the story, you know, they would take the entry kill, and whichever team would get that opening, they would just close down on the round. You need to be able to trade that out. It's a huge thing in console siege to be able to keep that man advantage equal and try to use that to your best advantage, because when you're in that that 3 versus 4, there's an extra man on the field of your opponents, and he can easily flank you. I mean, flanks happen all the time because people are just looking to get into a gunfight with you.
And I'd say another opponent, really, especially for the offense, is of course Father Time. That was a huge issue last round for Bing Bong, where they're a team that is very focused on getting into the site and maybe like the first minute, minute and a half. If they can't accomplish that, then they spend a lot more time going in for those clears, gathering info. They tend to show a lot more weakness. Maybe their time management isn't the best part of their resume, and that's why they like to be a little more aggressive. They can let their guns do the talking, and the rest of, all the filler content you can see in Siege just get pushed to the side because you already have the round over and done with, where you can really analyze what the main idea was of that play. Bing Bong not really put in the position, especially on a bomb site like Bar, to do that. And that's exactly what I mentioned in the prep phase. If there's a site where you want to stall heavily on, Barn Gaming is that site, and that's exactly what Prime did.
I think another point about that, just losing all the defenses, Bing Bong really could not make any plays together was an important aspect as well. They would try individually to make something work, but never, teaming up to attempt a play or anything like that. And, it's also a point on the other side for Prime as well. It's just about being very cautious and about knowing where you're going to be exposed to and where maybe it's, the best decision to just not push into an area at all.
Especially, again, when you've got those crossfires that are still firing out, you've got the power spots. Although you don't see the castle like too frequently anymore on Bar, it definitely helped the side of Prime, because again, you don't have to worry anymore about this one point of the map that can be an entryway for the attackers. So it allows a lot less diversity for them. And really, if the Jaeger could have just rotated down like snowmobile stairs, for example, and that one castle barricade was able to be stuck, it probably would have took a lot more effort and time to actually get that position opened up for the offense, and that could have maybe kept more players safe and sound in the bomb site for a little bit longer too. So that could have been even better for Prime if they had more of those castle barricades up and going, but still the 2 that were still active in that round were more than enough to really choke around Bing Bong.
So far, a bit of a shaky one. We are looking forward to Oregon. We are just getting that lobby ready for you. It's going to be a bit of a different aspect. Oregon feel like a map that does maybe lean a little bit towards the strengths of Bing Bong, but so far, the idea of, what I laid out in front of this game, you need to be dominant on your first map on your own choice. Prime have already done that. Now they look to Oregon. They look to their opponent's situation. You got to get this one over and get it over quickly. Bing Bong, don't allow them into this game. And, to look on the other side of things here, Bing Bong, they just got to play their own game. They just got to go back to the usual behavior of what works for them and see how that's going to match up.
Ooh, that's a really tough ban. The Ying, one of the best ops to help facilitate a quick execute, is now gone. Oregon probably being one of her best maps as well. That does suck for pretty much everyone that likes to execute fast. So Bing Bong seems almost more like a somewhat target ban towards them. The Finka in response by Bing Bong as well, since we have seen Prime bring out that operator in the past. Funny enough, Bing Bong have done so too, so a bit of a win-loss situation, but if you're used to gunning without her, it's not too big of a concern. Then followed up by Mira, which I don't think we've seen on Oregon really any proper Mira setups from what we're used to. You tend to see them deployed normally towards Closet and then usually Freezer as well, but most of the time it's been inside of E-Box, which seems really perplexing to me, but it's not going to be available on this matchup. And then followed up by another Malusi ban. Really not too shocked about that one.
Yeah, the console teams haven't really gotten over to the idea of having a mirror window that looks into Freezer. It's, the default completely. Every ranked game you're going to have one just sits in E-Box, simply because, a lot of teams aren't doing freezer takes on the offense. They just don't do that here on console. They're going to try to push in from construction. Teams are pretty set in their mind. I mean, even players rank stacks as well. They just find one thing that works and they do it, because they want to get the elo at the end of the day. So they're going to go for the strat that they're best prepared with. And as a defender, you just sort of need to match that. Up to the top floor, though, I feel like Bing Bong are most comfortable and have looked the best on their offense. That's where they do their good work. So for them to start off on their map choice on the offense, things are boding well for them.
Can definitely get that momentum going in a good way, although I think Prime were the ones to pick their side, so they're probably in the same boat more or less. And their attacks were flawless on Chalet. If they can employ just a little bit of that consistency here on Oregon, we might not see a third map of border, and it might be the underdogs to finally get that sweet taste of revenge against Bing Bong, which I'm sure we didn't expect going into this game, but it looks like that might become a reality depending on how well Prime can perform on that too.
Yeah, I mean, there's always a chance to go ahead and upset your opponent, and you yourself might have an opportunity to upset this one. If you want to be one of the players who is hanging out here, being one of the players who does end up on the broadcast, we got an easy way to get you informed on that. Compete.playstation.com has all the information for your Rainbow Six Siege PlayStation tournaments and a whole lot more, so go ahead and head over there. Just now, we've got links in the Twitch chat if you'd like to hop on there as well and get informed about what PlayStation is bringing to us in the future. But it'll be, so far, it seems, maybe a bit of emphasis on the big window as Bing Bong gets settled up here in their first attack.
Twitch drone going out. Not really a lot of util it can destroy since most of those ADSs are close to mute jammers, so the EMP would be the first line of attack before you see Slump really bring out that primary utility towards the mid-round. Bing Bong still heading their way over in through the back wall of Closet, leading into the bomb site, and then Bowie as well. Oh my goodness, what a long shot by Mazza. Some people hate the 416 recoil, but Mazza just pretends like it doesn't exist, and it works out for him. So does the Nitro Cell for Furzy. Legit's on a prone angle, so he catches Furzy trying to get aggressive. Devious responds on a Panther. Now we're on equal footing, and that trade game, it's been so consistent on map 1, it rears its head once again, but this time on map 2.
Bifok in the close encounter was waiting at Bolo. He actually steps forward and gets the shot. Slump was not ready for that. The audio cue, unfortunately, does betray him. A C4 goes up and it gets rid of another player. Down goes Cheese Fly. Devious Ollie was there from the main door, but a big way to start off this matchup. Prime are all over this one, and Bing Bong simply not prepared for what they've encountered.
And I mean, he just ran back into the C4. I was like, oh, he dodged it. He's in Closet. But maybe the call was made that he went back into it, and instantly you press on that phone, you dial up a little number, and boom, across the map. Mazza as well, the full rotate from T3 back to site, gets the last kill of this round, starts us with the entry, ends us with the finale, and already Prime are hot.
A big story coming into this one, as Prime are not at all afraid. I think that's kind of what's been defining their playstyle so far. Yes, they've been cautious, but they haven't been afraid. They're two wildly different things, and they have the guts to make the decisions in the crucial moments. Top floor defensive success for them. Bing Bong really lacking some of the structure and not being able to respond to unfettered aggressiveness. They're going to have to totally change their game plan and be ready for anything.
Really does seem like Kids has not really been a favorable sight for many attacking teams. Even when they win the round, it's their Heart Breacher dying first. We saw that in EU like 4 times in the same game. So I can't really fault Bing Bong for losing that round in particular in terms of the site, but the way it was lost, it was very dominant by Prime. Even when Bing Bong found those 2 trades, made it a 3-on-3, Prime they doubled down. They didn't give up. And again, we go back to the point you made at the very beginning of this broadcast. You match aggression with even more unwavered aggression, and Prime has been sticking to that notebook play. And I mean, it's found nothing for them but win after win so far.
The right way to come into this one. Be the bigger dog, be the bigger team, and not, let any kind of ego or any kind of poor mindset get in front of that one. The Clash comes out, an operator, which we did have banned on a couple of occasions. That can be a frustrator. I've had some matches where there's a Clash in play and you're just like, why did I have to load into the server on this day? Because she's so frustrating. And if you're not prepared to deal with it, you're going to be in a world of hurt. I'm going to be honest with you, John. They aren't really prepared to deal with it. They don't have any real explosives. Their only hope of, pushing the Clash out here would either be to get on 2 sides of her, good luck with that, or use the air jabs from Bowie.
You could use the stuns to force her back. I like the idea of pocket EMPs because then her stun ability is disabled. That could be a really good way to make space. But usually there's someone playing close to the Clash shield to be the active gun around the info. So sure, you disable Clash's main kit, but she's still a shield, and she's still telling her teammates when to swing you. So you got to be heads up for that play as well. But so far, Bing Bong, they're not going to be all too concerned about that. They're dealing with a potential of a top floor roam, but Prime are fully committing to that bunker, so it's currently just wasted time and extra precautions made by Bing Bong.
Yeah, that's exactly the way I would describe this one. Bing Bong look fully dialed in now. They look very cognizant of the situation around them. They aren't making any brazen moves. They're checking everything and being very, very thorough as you can really be. Making sure, you know, any rat corners where a player might suddenly arrive from, they're going to monitor it. That's not really what's happening with this strat so far. It's been an anchor, an on-site hold, and oh, there's one air jab gotten rid of, but there's still that other one we had earlier. I suppose, though, the Clash does have the impact, so she could just get rid of that no trouble.
Don't think there's anyone close by to really deal with the air jab. She could just take it at face value and probably just get back up and pretend like nothing ever happened, since Bing Bong have fully rotated down into Freezer and Laundry. The smoke's already deployed, but it's not a big deal. You, again, have all that stall. You got the Yokais. The Clash shield is still available, so you can be a little more aggressive with that primary gadget because you still have a lot left to work with.
There's the Clash starting to kind of make her way down through Freezer. Vibe does manage to spot out one. Now they know the position of the Echo, but he'll get off cams and get rid of the drone that was actively relaying his information. Bing Bong look a little bit out of sorts here. They don't really have a key entryway that they can make their way in from, but in the meanwhile, the Twitch just says it's go time. Vibe gets in for one as well. They're dealing with the Jaeger, and the Clash not really having substantial enough value as here comes Cheese Pie. He trucks right on in. Slump gets some activity as well there, but a sharp reaction from Burzy. Now they've got a defender isolated on the other side, and Vibe has no trouble dealing with that. But in the meanwhile, now it's Pifflock to try to step up into the clutch. Oh, the Twitch caught on the switch. She's down. 1v1. This might go 1v wrong as Pifflock is trying to make his way back in. Oh, but he's caught on the rotate and the reload as Vibe steps in and shuts that one down before it gets out of hand.
Went for the confirmation, and he's punished for it swiftly. A good attempt in the 1v3, but the smoke eventually snuffed out and choked out in Freezer. Bing Bong, a well-needed round win, I'd have to say, and again, by the skin of their teeth, really, at that point, which is shocking. You know, they had complete site control. Maybe if they had better info on Pifflock, they could have known where to maybe try to plant, set up that post position. But to Cheese Pie's credit, he just killed one of the players that was inside of Closet, and he's not really in a spot to plant, period.
Right.
So he's got to move anyways, and he's already next to his opponent. So not a good spot for him altogether, but at least they win the round and still have to face against Laundry, but they might get 2 wins out of it instead of just 1.
What is that avatar for Cheese Pie? What is that?
He's unleashing the beast. That's what's going on here.
That's terrifying. Like, it's like there's like 2 weeks until Halloween. I mean, you gotta at least put that thing away. My goodness gracious. Either way.
Tell me I gotta move my decorations since it's not the 31st yet? Is that what you're implying here?
I mean, hey, I guess I'm telling you what to do now, but either way, the Clash is not really having as much success maybe as the strat had called for. They'll bring her back again and see if things might change differently this time. Bing Bong, even though they win that round, it felt like they kind of won it maybe in a way that wasn't exactly official. You know, they came in, they just sort of ran in, tucked and ran, got the kills, and barely scraped by in the end, right? 1v1 to close it down.
And a desperation attempt, too. They were really focused on wanting to go Freezer and Laundry as well. And then they get 3 smokes thrown at them, and a Clash just starts smiling at them, like fully extended shield, and they're like, well, we can't get past this. We got to rotate. So they have little to no time to do so, and just barely get down below and find an opening because Prime cannot counter-rotate in time to actually stop that execute down by E-Box. Mazza almost gets eradicated. He is underneath half his HP pool and might need to fall back from backstairs sooner than expected.
That's never a good thing for your Clash player to be on low HP, and there's nobody with nades in this immediate area. The Clash just trying to maybe dodge and kind of get back out of here. It is, I like how the Cali just kind of shoots in the general direction of the Clash in case just anyone tries to push up past her. Maybe get lucky with a little shot there, but bringing in a bit of a different look to this one. Cheese Pie having the ability to get rid of a bit of extra gadgetry, but Piflock searching for the challenge. He's the smoke player, but he certainly is not playing that one too passive.
Ooh, if the Clash is pushed a little bit farther back, this could be a kill for Devious. Interested to see if he keeps patient on that angle. Altogether, dropping down the E-box hatch, it's got to happen eventually. But for Bing Bong, they're still waiting to fully set up in bunker along with that E-box position, gathering more info. Can we isolate out this Clash? Can we force her back? Is pillar control an option?
Oh,
and what? No, he tried shooting the drone or just something bombastic happened, but the Clash is now dead. That's major for Bing Bong.
Only on console, folks. I don't know what happened there. That's a really rough spot to find yourself in, and now the smoke is starting to feel a little bit under the gun as well. There goes the grenade. A little bit of flashes as well. I think maybe the frag was kind of early. The actual flashbang to burn the ADS came way later. They will get the reinforcement up, even despite the fact the shield was never destroyed. Panzer Bellico having another classic moment of his, where he steps up and he gets a big kill in a much-needed moment.
They've got no denial of the defense besides those yokais, and I don't think it's really in a good position to actually stop that defuse.
Oh no.
Shit, holding this angle. He almost spots him. I think for a second he caught a glimpse of that leg, but just cannot find it in time. He breaks out the rubble. A better angle now gathered. No one's in that corner, and just barely alive Telltale 2. A shot just glimpses past his skin to break a bit of friction between the two. Slump gets aggro, good for one. The yokai destroyed. Bowie collects one down hallway, looking through the highway position. Now Jariel's got to get aggressive. Furzy not there to assist because he's been dropped dead by Devious. 1 versus 4. Now in the post plant, the Nomad gets aggressive but quickly killed by that Echo. Wielding the MP5 suppressed, but Slump, the better lurk player, kills him, and Bing Bong go up 2-1.
Finally feeling like maybe this is Bing Bong a little bit more back in the saddle, finishing off the half 2-1 with a very strong one there. If their previous round was unofficial, that was the copyrighted version of the basement attack, as they made sure things did not get too sketchy for them. But now they're on the defense, and I suppose this is where the tale of the story really goes, because Prime, you know, when they're on defense, they can make all of the aggressive moves where they can kind of come in and really be surprising. On the offense, it's real harder to do that, especially here on console as well. You kind of have to play a little bit more regimented. And Bing Bong, I'm expecting them to be very prepared for this situation.
And we have seen, at least on Chalet, things be a little more attacker favored too. There's only 1 defensive round win. That was by Prime. All they really needed though. So we could maybe see that be re-employed. But Kids has been a very tough site to win on the offense, even when the odds are stacked with you, because against you, it apparently favors you more somehow. I don't know how you really want to crack into that omelet of statistics, but I guess we'll just call it an outlier and leave it on that. Unless it occurs once again, then you might not be able to call it unfamiliar because we've seen it so often today. Bing Bong, I guess their lineup would scream once again that aggression we have seen by them so many times, besides maybe the Warden, so they have a bit more insurance, and 2 shields, which hasn't really happened all too much. But with there being no mute, they could be easily broken by those repair drones.
Yeah, you know, this is console. We do not do math. The only math we do is, you know, how many more games until I rank up. So I don't know, statistics, that might be a little far off.
What's my KD?
Yeah, what's my KD? How many more games till I go positive again, right?
I've been the one to struggle with that in the past. Alrighty.
Well,
sometimes
it happens. Anyway, Prime are going to bring pretty much no funny business attacking lineup. Ability to lock down the flanks from the Nomad. You got your standard kind of breaching look from the Thatcher and the Therm. The Flores as well, always good to invest in that, especially when you're coming up against a double shield strategy, of course, from the Warden and the Alibi. And Piflock on a very niche angle, making sure anybody rotating will be shut down before that gets too trouble.
Good thing Bing Bong aren't really too close to there, because I wouldn't even expect that angle. Haven't seen that one really ever, I think. Really good find by Piflock there in particular. But again, not going to bear any fruit because Bing Bong are not over by Big Tower. You've got 3 in the bomb site, kind of playing between both Addict and Kids Room. And the rest of Bing Bong, I would assume, are just kind of creeping about by the first floor, most likely. Maybe just waiting for a flank potential, which might be very challenging because Nomad is available and her air jabs already fully deployed.
I think this is maybe a bit of a mistake here for Prime not to have the window open from Big. C4 toss, it goes through, and the Claymore even destroyed. That's a very strange Claymore placement. the Thermite decided not to stay inside the walk-in closet. You could just feel like Ollie just sort of wants to make a play here. You already gotten rid of one Claymore. What's to really stop the T-Bird from aggressing forward and making a clear statement?
Maybe expecting more than one player by Master. Have seen that position held by many in the past, so could be too risky to go for that confirmation or just don't want to get traded in any which way. Again, you're forcing Prime to make that first move, entering in the bomb site and still having backup by that laundry stairwell. That could be enough, but Prime, they've got info on this roamer's position, and they're going to wait for that rotate to be made first by the defense.
The Vigil is not really wanting to step forward. It almost seems like he's kind of thinking there is somebody in that area. Panzer Bellico with another crucial entry frag, and look at the twitch. He steps in, eviscerates the alibi, but the response is there from the T-Bird. And now that flank had somehow become unmonitored. It allows Bowie to creep in, and he gets one. Still an attacker in the walk-in closet, the other trying to rotate and get this adjustment from the master balcony, but I think it's going to happen too slowly. Instead, Bowie just sits and prones behind the master bed. If anything here, Prime will probably seek to clear him out before they move forward. Somehow he's getting shot up from beneath the floor. Perhaps his arm or foot was sticking out, and they've got that kill locked back in. A full sight flood hitting forward. They've gotten rid of Ollie, legit trying to step up in the meanwhile, but the plant is coming down, and Jarl trusts the coverage, does not get off the plant. Oh my god, Cheese Pie just runs right through, and he mows him down. Cheese Pie, are you kidding me?
The old man's got it in him. He's got the speed of, I don't even know what you could say, Usain Bolt levels of sprinting. He just cleared half the map, and he finds both of them with the SMG-12. Impeccable speed by the Warden, and he gets the round for his team. Match point for Bing Bong. You've got to be kidding me.
That is just wild. Only on console, folks. Let me tell you that. Wow, that was a really good one. You say it, match point. A crucial one. Cheese Pie gets him 3-1. And Prime, a major missed window there. What was the player by the default shield doing? Was he tying his shoes? He just let Cheese Pie run all the way through to the rotate.
He was admiring.
Biblical. That is biblical.
They talk about that in, you know, I don't even know, like Siege School. You can't even teach that in Siege School. Who am I kidding? That's just
can't teach that, folks. You can't teach that.
You really can't. I mean, I guess he just had his Crocs in like sport mode or something, dude. Because that guy he was zooming. He was showing up there. And now they got to go laundry, which has been a much more favorable site for the defense. And again, that statistical anomaly of being in a disadvantage, a 1v3 for example, but Cheese Pie still wins. That top floor site, I mean, I guess it works both ways. Unbelievable.
Bomb located by attackers.
Either way, Prime have got to feel a little bit beat down after that one. Around they must, you know, they surely would have had. They got rid of Bowie. That was a crucial pick for them. I thought, you know, surely the Vigil was not going to get found out. They were going to think, you know, where did he go? How did he just, he was right here. He just suddenly disappeared. No, they knew he was behind the bed. They got the kill onto him, and they, you know, hit the site with all their might, but I guess they just weren't ready. Cheese Pie with the 1v3 there, but moving on, Bing Bong, of course, the opportunity to close down here, and Prime really needs something back in here that says we are still holding on.
Would be nicer to end out this game on map 2 than it would be the full, I guess the full world visit heading back to Border, a map we saw a very long time ago today. Could be ending off the night for us as well. That's if Prime cannot win the next round or two to make it into overtime. Bing Bong, I'd say still once again having a good aggressive kind of lineup, but also with 2 shields, ADS and magnets, they look like they want to lock down places like Freezer. They want to keep control of Elbow for as long as they can too, because how common those spots are to be pushed in by the offensive side. And for Prime, they're doing the full works on this clear. Top to bottom, they've got vertical by Panther, roam clear by Jariel, and a flank watch with Nomad. They want to make sure that nothing can be reclaimed by Bing Bong. And funny enough, they only have the secondary breach of that bucket. It's already been used too, so they've got nothing else for hard destruction.
There are gives and takes. You know, you bring a lot of one thing, you're lacking somewhere else, and you're gonna have to make up for that. Oh, boom! The shotgun had one, but it actually had been a trade there between Panther Bellico and Cheese Pie. A flurry of gunfight here down at the bottom of the laundry stairwell. Vibe had it. He just reaches out and touches Furzy. There's Flup. There's Devious Ollie as well. Prime have fallen to shreds. And it's left up to Jarl, who does pick off one. He won't get anything more than that. Slump closes it up. It's Bing Bong to fight their way back into the series 4-1 here on Oregon. They'll send us to the decider of Border.
They found lemons and turned it quite quickly into a sweet drink of that lemonade. They bring us, like you mentioned, a Border, that being Bing Bong, after a incredible showing on their pick of Oregon. And now you've got two sides of the coin, really. Both Prime and Bing Bong winning very swiftly on each of their own map picks. So with that decider of Border, I mean, I don't really even know what to consider, because you've got the yin of Prime and the yang of Bing Bong. I mean, it could go either way, honestly, because we haven't seen either of these two teams play on Border. This is going to be an interesting one for sure. I don't even know what to say.
Yeah. I'm expecting Bing Bong to really come in here and be fiery, be a team that's just constantly is ready to go and does not slow down. We saw that primarily on Clubhouse in their earlier match, where they were just looking for opportunities offensively. And I wanted to see if we had the information on who starts where, because I think if Bing Bong start off on the offensive Border, this may be one that you can call right here and right now, because they are just so situated on offense. They have the calls, it's very well understood, and their explosiveness as a point to talk about them is just right on point when they need it. Maybe it was lacking a little bit on the defense, but on the offense, I feel like they always kind of are at the right balance.
The tempo setter for sure. And again, if you're a team that isn't too comfortable with like time management, for example, maybe it is the better call to really let your guns do all the talking, which we have seen by them countless times. I would say Prime as well. Definitely not as much as Bing Bong, but still to a very strong degree. Besides maybe round one of Chalet, they have been very focused on winning those gunfights, trying to isolate whoever they can, just to make sure that they're not really in the back seat on this car ride to that potential victory here for the squad series at Nighthaven. A major difference in cash prize pooling as well. I believe it's like, what, 350 between 600. So a good differential in that too, that goes around between 5 people. So you would like that extra change. And altogether, I always mention this for any kind of tournament, the bragging rights of saying you won this, it goes a lot better than saying we were the quote unquote first losers of the Nighthaven series, because that's a lot of people consider second place to some extent.
Right, and you know, it also as well, it really sounds nice to say, you know, we hit the three-peat of the PlayStation tournaments, right?
Yeah.
We got back to back to back, and you know, there could be a 4-peat, could be a 5-peat, who knows what we've got, you know, more potential for Bing Bong to continue on the line. But of course, Border, this one is really going to be kind of a classic. I don't really know if I can call whether or not this one is going to be decisive, or it could be an overtime.
I think we might see that potential of an Osa ban too, perhaps, because Osa is very strong on Border. We saw that picked a lot by Prime. So you can maybe have a little more target bans put into the mix here heading into map 3. You know, you've had some time to ferment against your opponents. You know what they like, what they hate, what they're good at, what their weaknesses are. So especially on a decider map, you can really, you know, manipulate how you want the game to be played at any given moment, offensive side or even defensive side too, more specifically defense, but it goes both ways with those bans again that I had mentioned previously. I don't think we've seen a lot of like major info ops being selected though for the defensive side, so maybe we'll see that Valkyrie ignored once again. And with a lot of that flooring being soft on Border, I feel like that could be major potential to maybe have those C4s really have impact, not only with the Valkyrie, maybe a Pulse too, because this is one of his more preferred maps to play in comp still.
Right, yeah, we did have a little bit of Pulse. We had Border, was it twice, I think, earlier in our European event coverage?
Yeah.
We're actually conducting a coin flip right now, I guess, to decide who chooses what sides on the final map of Border. So that will be kind of up to chance in terms of who gets to choose. So far, I feel like maybe we haven't really had too much of a favor for defense or attack from a prime point of view. It feels like maybe they've just kind of done whatever. They've not really cared too much. But definitely, I'd say it's clearly outlined for Bing Bong. They're good on the offense. The defenses are, they've got some trouble in some certain areas.
Especially since I feel like for both teams, really giving up a lot of that map control from the very beginning, it can be a bit of a double-edged sword because, again, you're giving a lot for free, but that's if your opponent acknowledges it, right? You still have a team comp that's based around dealing with a roam clear, and now that's non-existent. You're putting a lot of eggs in one basket that might just be a basket made out of, not even weaved together properly. It's just made out of like wet paper at that point. So it's just going to kind of like fall apart. Your eggs are all on the ground. They're broken. They're cracked. And now you're out of poultry. That just sucks. So I really got to wonder if we're going to still see that, more anchor-based composition was maybe a light lurk at most, or if we're going to see that more extensive style of play, because we haven't seen too many extensions. That actually might be a good way to maybe get the one up on your opponent because they're not prepared for that anymore.
Yeah, I don't know if that's maybe necessarily just kind of a console thing at large. We don't really have, these huge extensions where you're constantly thinking about this area of the map is going to be the one that I hold until I die, or, that idea of this area is sort of valuable, but I'm going to fall off and I'm going to try to rotate back to site if I think it's going to be, if I'm here for too long or if I think something's about to just come down on me. And for Border as well, I feel like it's almost a map where you can't really afford to say, no to the idea of extensions. You must hold the vert in a lot of these occasions because of the same points that you made about, there's vert almost everywhere,
Yep.
on Armory and Archives. The same goes, of course, for the sites directly below that, Vents, Workshop, a bathroom. You're kind of safe a little bit, in the teller's area as well is kind of uncovered. Then on that site, you generally pop the hash and try to execute horizontally. But, even going on to customs as well, there's not a lot of options. There's always a vertical threat.
Especially since a lot of the older maps, being very vertical based, even with the rework Border, it still has its roots in that orientation of play. Also with Azami now in the mix too, a lot of teams love to bring her out on that map because you have like those death spots like CCTV, for example, where you might need to fall off of that spot in like 30, 40 seconds. Now you can play there for like a minute 20. So you are really adding that longevity to those extensions that are make or break that we both discussed. So I don't know if we're going to have that operator really banned or not. I can't recall if both teams have brought out the Azami at one point, but I know on Clubhouse it was selected, at least for game number 1, a few times by both teams. So besides that, maybe it'll be a bit of a dark horse here going into map 3 too.
Yeah, we definitely had it at least, once for either one of these rosters. Specifically, I'm remembering Bing Bong, their rafters hold where they just had things everywhere. And then on Chalet as well for the basement strat that we saw by Prime, where they set up kunais to kind of stop some of those crucial angles coming in from the trench area. So there is that, idea of having that. She could be one to get rid of. Maybe look at the Thunderbird as well, who has been kind of a popular operator in all senses.
And funny enough, I don't think we really have seen as much Thunderbird in this best of 3 than we have the whole day here with PlayStation. It was brought out a couple times today in this best of 3, but definitely not as much. And again, it comes down to that comfort. You want to be able to prolong those gunfights as much as you can. You come back to site, get healed up, go for a new engagement. And with Finka being a lot less in the meta currently, that allows you to have the health advantage going into any fight. Chip damage is a major portion of the meta currently. So having those Konas, it goes a long way. And it seems like Prime, they're the ones on the offensive side for the first portion of this matchup. And if we get to OT, then Bing Bong get to go there. So once again, that talking point of a double-edged sword, I feel like that's going to apply to here to who's starting on which side first, because like we mentioned, Bing Bong, they're a really good tempo setter, so attacking first is a good way to get in the right headspace. But you've got that fallback. If overtime ends up getting procced, they've got their fallback. They've got their nice little, comfort, their piece of home, their nice little island of paradise there of that attacking side. So that could work for them too if overtime is required.
Yeah, again, I think it's going to be a little shaky. It'll be interesting to see how Bing Bong do begin this one on the defense. For Border, though, I feel like maybe you do have an opportunity to, set the tempo in some regards defensively with kind of the level of extension that you're going to play out. And, if you're going to hold a certain area like CCTV, really, you can decide the way that's going to play out by the amount of utility you're going to develop into that area. And if you're going to, try to set up things like shields, reinforcements, kind
Mhm.
of some openings made in certain areas like that. And, as compared to a map like Oregon, where you sit in the site and you wait for certain things to happen.
Well, just about ready to get that matchup over and out with. And again, if you are interested in maybe having the chance to, compete in these matches, you've got compete.playstation.com. We've got, all that info for you stacked up on the website itself. We've got good integration here with the Twitch chat as well. So you're not really going to have to, take a lot of time to get yourself booked up for that position too. So pretty much every month, if you want to, have some fun with your buddies, maybe have a chance at winning a good amount of prize money too, and some extra skins depending on the event itself, I definitely recommend giving it a look.
Yeah, and especially, not only for North America, I imagine everybody that's watching right now is probably in NA, as it is getting a little bit late, but also on the
Yeah.
European side as well, you've got, many tournaments, you've got opportunities to play. PlayStation even actually partnering with Spoit, who is a very popular R6 content creator over in Europe. Spoit is kind of having his like own, type event. I think it's called like the Bandit series or something like that. So he's kind of, promoting that, and it's just another opportunity to kind of compete and stuff.
Just kind of spreading the love a little bit, keeping that community strong. And I think I remember like way back in the day when I was still playing comp, it was mostly like go forwards and like really underground, like not well known
Very
leagues.
underground.
When you get something as big as this, I mean, that gets everyone's attention really. So the more the merrier. That's always the go-to phrase for events like this here at PlayStation. So it's not even just with R6 as well. Like you mentioned, there's a whole list of games that we've got available here for our series matchups, and I would, name them off, but it is a pretty hefty list. So I think I'd rather not spare you guys the annoyance of that. You can go look for yourself. You actually check out the link.
Yeah, and you can even just look at the ticker in the bottom of the screen that kind of
That's
tells you some of
true.
the other events. So tells us some of the other events that we've got going on there as well. Fighting games is definitely a big one. I feel like a lot of people on
Yeah.
PlayStation are into the fighting games community. You ever play fighting games?
No, I was horrible at them. And then my mother would like entice me to play them, and she would just like button mash all these like annoying combos, and I just get like very frustrated. I'm like, this sucks. I've been
I'm gonna
going
go do
easy
something
on
else
me.
now.
Yep, that was the go-to. And then eventually I found Siege, like I don't know, several years later, cutting out on some really valuable fellow lore. And yeah, now we're here. So there's short story.
You want to talk about some of the stories from the Xbox days? What was the name of that
Uh,
team you played for? Let's
oh,
hear it.
you wanna talk about Jock Clan a little bit? Oh,
Yes, yes.
that was a time. We were undefeated in scrims, 3-0. We were just that good. We were the summer stoppers or summer showstoppers. That'd be a better name for us, I'd have to say. We beat, oh my God, do I even remember their name? It started with like an N. It was like a New York-based team for console, and they were like, I think their nickname was like NF. I don't remember the full like acronym of it, but that's what they were in game, and they were like a top team in console back at that time. We scrimmed against them, and I don't think half of us even knew that a scrim didn't mean game day. So we were playing it like it was game day. And oh God, winning on scrims was like it was the best feeling on earth at that time. But that was a very long time ago. And then I was on Malevolent Gaming for a while too, which is funny enough. How we have some interconnected ties with one another, since uh, Malevolent is, I guess the term would be like co-ed, I guess, for console, because they did both groups of console
Right.
at the time.
Yeah. Do you know any Xbox players that you ever played against that went on to reach, a level of success, whether Challenger League or Pro League or something like that over on the PC side?
Yeah, Asian, good example. He was on Xbox at the
Oh
time.
yeah.
Um, long story as to why he didn't play in comp, but I knew him, and I'm not going to get into why he didn't play comp. You had Aggro. He's now a pretty decent T3 player. I was one of the first people to ever cast him. Waffle as well. He also came from
Yes.
console. So yeah, there's a lot of familiar faces, and everyone's kind of on the same page. Whenever you get enough money to upgrade, that's kind of the go-to place. But It's also a really tough decision to make because you're vacating a lot of your friends and you're leaving a familiar environment, which is kind of like the nice thing about still having all these tournaments here is it gives you more of a reason to stick with your buddies and just continue, playing the games for the reason you want to, which is to have fun at the end of the day and maybe you'll get some bonus out of it too.
Yeah, it's also kind of fun, as a caster to go and look back and see who's still
Yeah.
around, who's still playing. There were some, excuse me, there were some players who did move over from the PS4 days. I believe Modelo was one of them. He did not ever get into Challenger League. He did a little bit of quals for some of the other kind of more amateur competitions. Momo, what was his other name? Momo the Super Rat.
Yeah,
The Super Rat. Yeah. He had a pretty good run in T3, won a couple of leagues. He, I think, was in a relegation for Challenger League, but lost, and that was very disappointing. I think that kind of signaled the end of his playing career. There was also, what was his name? Can't remember the name. Totally escapes me. Either way, decider here in the championship round of our squad series, Night Haven. It's on border. And there goes the clash.
Yeah, these bans are not really shocking. You've got Osa, who I mentioned. She was played on Oregon. If you're going to bring her on that map, you're going to want to bring her on Border, which is probably one of her best maps, period. So that's no longer a threat. You've got Prime again with the Ying. You know how execute-styled Bing Bong is, so getting rid of that main piece of the puzzle for that is a huge bonus. Malusi, I mean, I don't know, just comfort. Like, Malusi, we've seen banned, like, a good chunk of the day, and she's a good op for, like, gadgets and a good gun player, too, but not, like, a major reason besides comfort to remove her, and then Clash, same principle applies. She's just annoying to deal with.
Yeah, I can't really argue with those points. The Osa, I really like getting rid of her. I feel like that's going to kind of make things a little bit more kind of even in terms of the parity between offense and defense here. First go around, Bing Bong are headed up to the top floor, and I really want to see how they kind of play, especially for Bowie. I feel like Bowie has not really had a fantastic game so far. You can't expect every player to constantly do well in every environment, but maybe Border is going to be an area where he's a little bit more familiar with, and he's going to kind of be more dialed in.
This would be a good power-up game for him since, everything is kind of on the line. Sure, you've got more monthly events that I wouldn't be shocked if both Bing Bong and Prime participate in, but, I mean, hey, you got to stay undefeated to, keep the title of the reigning champion here for these PlayStation tournaments, no matter what extra series they are, open series, nationals, specific events catering to a specific season for R6. The list goes on, really. So for Bing Bong, definitely a lot more at stake for them, but also for Prime, a good proving ground, because you don't want to be just the second best team in these tournaments. You want to be the very best too.
Yeah, one thing I think it would be kind of interesting to find out is like overall player earnings for some of these players who have been around for a really long time, because that's information that really you don't have access to as compared to, over on the PC side of things, where there's like a website you can go that tells you how much, a certain player has made and all that. It's just be kind of interesting to see who's the most successful. From a technical sense, there was an early spawn peek attempt from Devious as he had just been looking out of that break room door.
Bomb located by attackers.
Interesting selection here on the glass. Hithawk is rocking that Russian operator. The grenades as well, so you've got good spam here for Prime. But again, I really want to know where he's going to set up. I mean, you got a lot of long angles you can work with from the exterior of this map, but then that would nullify the presence of those grenades. Maybe he'll bring them out at the very beginning, then set up to use that sniper a little more effectively. And also, you've got the thermal scope, but no smokes to help assist. Definitely seems like a bit of a mistake made in terms of what utility you're bringing here.
Yeah, that does kind of hamper you a little bit, and I feel like Glass is one of those operators who is just coming into the meta because of the necessity of having those explosives. Here's Bowie on the attempt, but he just can't get it. Jarl a little bit of head glitching there at the edge of the railing, and he does outlast a burst of fire from the Maestro. Jarl, I don't think, just spotted that player at the bottom of the east stairwell, and I don't know what much happened from it. Maybe they had rotated away. In the meanwhile, another casualty, but a quick response there as Furzy is put away, and Bellico dies as well. A grenade goes up, but nothing out of the glass.
Mostly hit the half wall there. no damage done. And if it were dealt, I think the Kona instantly healed it back up. You got Mazza able to get rid of Vive. Prime now back on the advantage, but they still have to fight for that site contention.
Getting a little bit of engagements, testing the waters a bit here with 60 to go. Piflock is ready on the other side of the threshold. Still have, though, 2 C4s ready in the wings. There's the Cage starting to step forward as Piflock has resorted to the bearing 9, and the explosive does field itself forward. Another explosive sent in the meanwhile. Ollie is under a major amount of damage. The flashbangs come forward. Oh no, but the Nomad ran in prematurely and legit there. Ultimately, Cheese Pie to finish it out as Bing Bong have got the first one in the bag.
Still able to isolate and knowing when to get aggressive as well in that round. Able to keep Bing Bong afloat for holding both archives and lockers, but I really am intrigued if Prime maybe had better utility to set up for that post plant if they were able to still win that round. Again, besides the Evil Eyes, there wasn't really much to stop a smoke plant from going down, especially with the glass. Sure, you've got C4s, but unless you're playing underneath, which the defense really wasn't, you're not going to be able to get that C4 in a spot to throw without really exposing yourself to that sniper rifle looking down at you from a very long position. So again, if they were a little more coordinated as to who was bringing what in that comp, could have been a pretty big game changer overall. But Bing Bong, I'm sure they're not going to try to walk away from a round win that easily. They still take it, and now they get to go vent.
Yeah, the glass, maybe an idea they just kind of picked up and didn't work, so they throw it away back in the toolbox for something maybe at a later period. They're going to go for a little bit more of a typical one, but the fuse does stand out from this composition. Of course, we mentioned during our extended break there the idea of how much of this map is actually soft floor, and you do have some on-site gadgets, of course, things like, you know, the Kona stations or, you know, the mute jammers. I wouldn't really say that Cade is going to be on site. It's probably off on some kind of an extension or maybe protecting a hatch or something to that effect. But the fuse is also helpful when it comes to, you know, something like an execute. I don't know if you remember, John, some of those old Macy J videos where he would set a fuse charge, then he would go execute, and then he would call the fuse charge in. You just get in and plant, and there's all the cluster charges on the ground, and you can't rotate back to stop the plant.
Yeah, it makes a pretty safe barrier for you. The defenders, if they want to get past that barrier, normally not so safe, I'd have to admit. Bing Bong still finalizing that setup up above. Seems like they'll go for a pretty light roam, not too much utility up here, but they've got the players to back up these locations so far. Even a defender by top east, and Panther almost gets that headshot. Does locate the alibi, but cannot land anything. But thankfully, with the Finka being available, you got those boosts to heal yourself back up. So it's like nothing ever happened. You got info. There's
Well, it appears we have just lost fellows, so I'll be filling in. In the meanwhile, it's Jarl to protect against the sudden pressure that came out of that window. An aggressive move, but one that does get tempered, as Prime are not going to allow Bing Bong to completely run away with this round, making sure they are forced back just a little bit more. Drona for a little bit of intel. Here goes the Captain. He might think about the jump out as well, but at the last moment decides against it. But his foot is in decent view of Jarl, and they are just looking for the opportunity to get rid of this player.
They really know. They've got complete info. They want legit to overexpose himself. They want this freebie. That could be major, but no, the timing! No! Gerald doesn't expect it. The Cap can't get away for free. Thankfully, it's not too big of a concern. That could have potentially been huge, but okay, Panther. He walks in, but Devious gets both of them. What? A double angle just completely flattened by the spear.
He was just in there and they didn't know. Furzy still doesn't know. He's like, where did this player go? He doesn't check at the close. That's a triple kill for Ollie. He's looking for a fourth. There comes in the IQ. Say goodbye, but he can't get another. Jarl will finally put an end to that masquerading defender on the top floor.
He's just dancing by the half wall, and wow, legit. Smoked on the verticality. You can't make that up. Sometimes, I don't even know what to say. You are Cinderella there in that storyline, really. You are just somehow dancing around everybody on that top floor, and you got a guy coming in from Locker's door and from Archives, and you still isolate them one for one. I mean, impressive there by the Thunderbird. Devious doing God's work above, but wow, Prime, how did they not know?
I don't know. I didn't want to interrupt you, but he was just in the hut. He was there. He
I don't
was
blame
there,
you.
man. He was there. And wow, Bing Bong are starting to kind of feel themselves better in this series. Big moment there for Ollie, and Prime are not right now in a position to respond, especially, you know, for Bing Bong here to be on the defense and really doing well in an area where they have so far in the best of 3 for our finals kind of struggled a little bit, finding their way back, getting the momentum. Prime have got to get ahead of this right now, this round, otherwise it could be over.
And Bathroom is a very tricky map, or site, I should say, on the map of Order, that if set up correctly, is going to lead you very thin in terms of resources. You've got the castle available for Devious. We talked about the choke points that established on Chalet, now implemented here on Border. And as well, how easy it can be to extend on every part of the map. You've got customs you can sit in as a defender. You've got every portion of the top floor, CCTV, offices, lockers, a spot that was very deadly for Prime last round. One fatal flaw by Prime, and that could potentially be the round. You lose one major part of the map, you lose the main advantage, you lose the momentum, and you got to reset. That is a huge heartbreaker if that were to happen.
Gonna try to play things out horizontally here. The Castle Strat, the deep extension into Workshop, and even more for Server as well, with some little investment up above as well. Bowie just setting up a late rotation if he needs to go up there and get something done. This looks very prepared and thought out from Bing Bong. It'll be an Archives over push from Prime. This is the right idea. Overtake, get established. Don't try to jump right into a hot zone or anything crazy like that.
I think we heard for a second the cluster charges going off there by Pitfog still running out on the fuse. Been a staple for Prime, it seems, and I haven't really hated it at any point because the ideology behind using those charges is to more or less just make space and not really get kills or even try to break a lot of utility unless it just gets in the way, which sometimes is the better call to go for, being a little more passive with that util and having a bigger picture in mind rather than just the instant gratification and maybe getting that 5-on-4 or 5-on-3 if someone gets really unlucky. So far, though, for Bing Bong, not really getting into, trouble just yet. Everyone's fallen off of that roam, at least on the top floor. We still have a mild extension here by Vibe. So good timing here for Prime, but their setup, it's still going to take a long portion of time, especially if they want to deal with customers.
Very patient from the K. He's waiting for his C4. Puts it away, and he's gone. I don't know if he died to a breaching charge or if there was a ghost, but something got him, and it was from Pifflock that it happened. Jarl has another. Prime in solid field position. Vibe just sort of looking on from down below. One right above him, that's the Nomad, but Vibe doesn't really put that one together yet, and as he does eventually figure out what's happening above him, the Nomad will actually rotate away.
I don't think Piff has any more charges left, so it's going to be a little difficult for that post-plant position. Wow, beautiful kill. Threading the needle there for Bowie. And is there going to be a retake attended up above? Yes, for a brief moment. Someone was top metal. They fall away. Bowie off screen gets another one. Things are dead even. The case now dropped. The hatch is opened by Bowie. Could try to bait going up the hatch, but instead he rotates back to Customs. Kills found across the map. Still, no one's on site. If the case gets recovered, it'd be a retake needed by Bing Bong.
30 to make this one work for him. Flashbang comes in. Bowie on the site, but there's a drone on his position. Oh, and he gets absolutely clipped by Panther Bellico. But Vibe, look at this angle in the frost mat in the late game. Furzy's down. Finka for a moment thinks about the plant. Adrenal Surge will do her no good, but she's behind the bomb chassis. There is no angle here for Vibe, and it takes him a second to get through the rotate. LMG versus the MX4. 40 seconds to make this work. Vibe hits the rotate, gets in, closes the distance. This is the right call. But there's going to be that down player to provide the intel, and the swing is there from Panzer Bellico. When his team needs him most, Prime get the last round of the first.
Nerf after nerf, the Finka will still thrive and win the 1v1 with a bit of an assist to make it that 1.5 v1 in that position. I am a little shocked that he actually got away from the shield to plant a little bit deeper in the bomb site, but that is the better call, as the shield, it really did force the Finka to be completely trapped. You could say the same thing for the bomb chassis, but it's a little more open in that position. And that does force the hand of the Alibi to be a little more cautious about taking those gunfights. It's less of the site that she can clear without having to get aggressive. And that also gives you more time to actually allow your dead player once again to feed good info to guarantee, hey, the Alibi's going through a rotate. You can maybe swing and instantly kill her before she can adjust back onto you, which is somewhat what happened in that position. And if she doesn't go by the rotate, you can probably hear that audio-wise, and you've got all that horizontal play on the bomb site with tellers being completely opened. So that was a really good minute adjustment there by Prime to really confirm it's not going to be match point so early for Bing Bong.
You just need to kind of hit that and reinforce it in the transition between the first and the second half. See what you might be able to figure out now that you're on the defense. You're the one who gets to decide where things happen. But for Bing Bong, again, historically, we've talked about them as being a team that is really in the right mindset when they're on the attack. Sure, they've had a couple of hiccups. There were certain moments, especially on Chalet, where it felt like they were a bit out of their element. But on Border, you know, it's a map that's so gamed out. It's one where, you know, there's, even from, you know, the first day of the map, there's not really a lot that can change. You know, even, you know, after the rework with a little bit more kind of certain areas, certain doors that you can close off, despite that, the offense still has so many ways that they can get at you.
Now, Bing Bong also bringing out those grenades too. If they're going to try to go underneath, definitely wouldn't be a bad idea. Maybe remove that half wall position that's normally held by a defender. Their spawns would like to imply that they want to go over towards offices, maybe. I don't think it's really a bad call since most of that flooring is, or walling, I should say, sorry, is actually pretty soft. But that roam over by both catwalk and near main hallway could maybe pose some sort of threat here for Bing Bong, especially if they don't acknowledge it. Oh, here comes Mazza, but no, he doesn't expect the prone angle. Slump is in the rattiest angle possible, and it surprises Mazza completely that he drops dead.
I mean, wow, that is great. And they have such excellent drone work as well. Won't really matter much for that one as Jarl sends up the C4, but they know about this player on that catwalk, and Slump hits him with the reaction flick on right to the head.
Wow. You can't ask for better mechanical skills. You've got Pitfalk as well now. Desperate here, it seems, for Prime. They're at that disadvantage. They're being forced back off the site. With Pitfalk no longer having a nitro, the best option could be to flank, but you are one of the loudest operators in the game. Walking up a staircase, you are just asking to get shot, and oh boy, it seems like Vibe, he knows the vibes of this round. He could easily kill the Mira if she wanted to go east, but it seems like she'll go up metal instead to maybe play for that post-plant retake.
Get back with the rest of the squad and just link together here, especially when you're already in the disadvantage,
Wow.
but Slump is just reeling out and pulling people in. 4 versus 2 to give Bing Bong series point, as Slump is just such a patient player. Waiting, goes for the drone, gets the intel. Now they know there's a player in Africa, and Slump hits a monster shot. A little bit of a lack of intel on the last player, and it's Vibe to do it in. Bing Bong, the three-peat is on the line if they get the next round win.
And a impressive showing as well by Slump. I mean, he did the best he could in that entry role. He tries to throw off Mazza's position, and he is completely unaware that there is a Twitch currently just hugging the ground with her life depending on it. And that just sets up the domino effect that we have mentioned so many times for Bing Bong. That's now your CC/break player by themselves. No chance of a trade. Slumps takes that opportunity, and he does not fail in that endeavor. That forces Pitfalk as well with the rest of the offense to go inside of office so early with no more roam extension. That forces his hand to waste a C4, then rotate where Slump is there to greet him top metal. And then the drone bait too, to gather info. And then again, you're in a 2v4 and you want to stop the plant from going down. You're forcing the hand of that defensive lineup, and Slump is already there in the cutoff. Again, you couldn't ask for a better round for him, except, I don't know, maybe hitting that wall bang for an ace. But that is just really like, that's the cherry on top of the sundae at that point. That's not even needed. It's just, it's a guilty pleasure.
I mean, if he hit that shot through the wall, that would have been like Game Awards, like Clip of the Month, like just insane level. And it really shows you, we might be on console, but, you know, these players have good aim. They are sharp shots. I have seen some controller players that are really just miles ahead of what you can expect. I know people like Royal Penguin who come from the consoles and they go over to PC. Players like you mentioned earlier, Asian Aggro as well. These players who are really solid, really sharp on the consoles. They go over, and a lot of that can transfer.
5 seconds left.
Prime hoping to transfer some rounds going their way to maybe be graced with overtime, let alone the win as a whole. They look so good at the beginning, but then Bing Bong just kind of forgot about what they just were dealt with in terms of a hand for Chalet, and they're back in business, really. Seems like going to have to go up against this Lockers defensive hold once again, and it might be just that map lineup we're seeing here. We saw Bing Bong maybe not expecting that Chalet pick. It could be the same story here for Prime, because I am a little shocked that they want to try to go up above again before trying something new, since you're probably going to have to go somewhere else even if you win this round.
Even if it might seem like a bit of minutia, Bing Bong have just had fantastic drones so far, really constantly searching for something where they can get a bit of information. Furzy with a prepped run out. Bowie has the entry. Mazza has been a big player so far this game, but he's been shut out, and Panther and Bellico put away there too. Bowie is easing in on this opportunity. Down goes Piplock. This one might be over. Jarl has the reaction. His C4 goes up, but this is still a 4 versus 2.
And he's so exposed as well. That player by 90, if he walks out, that's Jarl dead most likely. There's a bit of cover for the Bandit, but besides that, again, so many spots to worry about. If he cannot react in time, this could be lights out and another 4v1 potentially for Bing Bong to close out this game.
They have the intel now there on the Bandit as well. He doesn't really have much anywhere he can go. Not enough shots, not enough damage onto the Twitch. That might be the call. That might be the go signal. And look at the pre-aim on Vibe. He's seen it before. He's ready for it, and Furzy is done for. Bing Bong will shut it up. The three-peat is theirs here in the Squad Series Nighthaven.
Calling the 92 Dream Team, they're the best to ever do it in this game. And they're not going to end their lineage just yet. The dynasty will continue with another win and another trophy into their case. And I guess we'll need that forklift stickler because it's getting heavier by the day.
It is getting heavier, and Vibe having a great performance there, not only to close out that one, but also overall on Border. Was really a player that was hard to find moments for on Chalet, even though he went absolutely crazy earlier on Clubhouse. And overall, just a shocking series. But Bing Bong, at the end of the day, it took them 3 maps. It took us all the way to the end, but they get it done on Border to add another PlayStation trophy to that big chest.
And again, Prime, they were at a point looking really dominant. Even when they were only able to win 1 round, they still had people like Panther doing all right, Gerald getting into the fray a lot when needed most, and it still got them around here and there. But I guess after that first round, they weren't able to replicate that same pizzazz, that same magic we saw by them for Chalet. And again, you see that veteran capabilities by the side of Bing Bong, and it's more than enough to get the job done. But hey, for Prime, there's always a next time. We've talked about the website for PlayStation all the time, compete.playstation.com, to get yourself signed up. And like we mentioned with the storylines here, you could be a part of that storyline. You could be the next big thing if you really want to be. It's that easy to get involved.
Yeah, you really could. I mean, this event, there's going to be more. There's going to be lots of opportunities to put yourself in the list, put yourself in the running. And, if you're practicing, if you're really, getting out there scrimming and you've got a good squad, a solid squad, we saw earlier in this game, it is possible to defeat some of these teams that have players that are so cracked out of their mind. These players who have been doing it, have been winning events like this for so long. And I think it does say a lot for Prime to have won on Chalet, to one as they did. A 4-1 scoreline is no small thing against a roster like Bing Bong, and it really goes to put some players on the map who you might not have heard of before.
Yeah, and frankly, I still didn't think that this game, although going the distance for a 3-mapper, would be so close in the round count. Again, we talk about, map disparity. That's definitely something to look forward to. And with more of these series going on, you have teams that are more comfortable with, getting involved in other maps as well, since you have a wide variety of selections to choose from. So maybe in the next series that comes around here, Stick, we might get a little more of a fancy treat. Hey, maybe Bravo Stadium. Don't want to jinx it, but it could happen. There's potential.
There definitely is, and we'll see if that maybe does happen next time. But thank you to everyone who tuned in for our North American event today for the Squad Series Nighthaven as a whole, both Europe and North America. But that finishes our programming. From all of us here at PlayStation saying so long, I've been Reese Hambrick, my commentary partner, John Seach. We'll see you next time.
PlayStation